The sun beats down mercilessly upon the marble platform where Marcus stands, his bronzed skin glistening with sweat and the dust of 1,000 broken dreams. Around him, the marketplace thrums with the sounds of commerce and suffering, merchants calling out their wares, the clink of coins exchanging hands, the mournful cries of those being torn from their families. The slave market of Rome pulses like a wounded heart, indifferent to the pain it causes. Marcus keeps his eyes fixed forward, refusing to meet the gaze of potential buyers who circle him like predators assessing prey. His dark hair clings to his forehead, matted from weeks of confinement in the holding pens. His hands, calloused from years of labor in the mines before his capture, clench and unclench at his sides. The chains binding his wrists are cold iron, a weight he has grown accustomed to carrying, though they seem heavier in this moment than ever before. The auctioneer's voice rises above the crowd, describing Marcus in terms that reduce a human life to mere commodity. Strong back, unblemished except for the scars that tell stories of survival. Young enough to be trained, old enough to possess genuine strength. The voice drones on, clinical and hollow, and Marcus feels something within him beginning to die with each word spoken. He has been here for 3 days. 3 days of standing beneath the unforgiving Roman sun, of watching others be sold to fates he can scarcely comprehend. An older man was purchased yesterday by someone who examined his teeth like a merchant inspecting livestock. A young woman with desperate eyes was led away by a wealthy merchant the day before, and Marcus tried not to imagine where she was going or what would become of her. A man in the crowd catches his attention. Unlike the others, this one does not merely assess and pass on. He stands still, studying Marcus with an intensity that feels almost penetrating. The stranger wears the fine linen of a man of means, and his bearing speaks of authority. Something about him suggests he has seen much and is impressed by little. Yet his eyes linger on Marcus with purpose, as though seeing something others have missed. The auctioneer notices the man's interest and works harder, calling out the price, inviting opening bids. Others in the crowd begin to respond, their voices overlapping in a competition that feels both abstract and brutally intimate. Marcus is being reduced to numbers, to figures that climb higher with each new offer. The man in fine linen raises his hand deliberately. His bid is substantial, far exceeding the previous offers. There is something final in the gesture, an assertion of will that seems to silence the other bidders. For a moment, no one else offers a counterbid. The auctioneer's gavel hovers above his block. As Marcus watches, something passes between the man and himself, not quite understanding, but recognition of some kind. The stranger's expression suggests he has purchased not merely muscle and bone, but something he perceives as valuable in a way the others cannot comprehend. It is a look that frightens Marcus more than all his days of captivity combined. The gavel falls with a sound like thunder. The transaction is complete. Marcus now belongs to this stranger, this man of authority and mysterious purpose. The chains are unlocked from the platform's binding post and passed into new hands, new ownership. His entire existence has been decided in the span of mere moments, transformed by the fall of a wooden hammer and the exchange of coins he will never see. The man approaches closer now, and Marcus can see the calculation in his eyes, the assessment of value and utility. There is intelligence here, and power, and something else Marcus cannot quite name. Whatever this man wants from him, it will demand everything. That much is clear with absolute certainty. As the Lannisters' guards lead him away through the crowded streets toward the stables of the Circus Maximus, Marcus does not yet know that fate has chosen him for a destiny far greater and far more perilous than he could ever imagine. The smell of horses and sawdust fills Marcus's nostrils as he steps through the arched gateway into the vast underground world beneath Rome's greatest amphitheater. His eyes take a moment to adjust to the torchlit darkness, and when they do, He finds himself standing in a corridor that stretches impossibly far into shadow. The walls seem to breathe with the energy of countless lives, countless dreams, countless moments of glory and despair. The sound of hooves echoes from somewhere deeper within. A man appears from the gloom, his weathered face a map of scars and sunburned skin. This is Titus, the master of the stables, and his gaze sweeps over Marcus with the dispassionate assessment of someone who has evaluated thousands before him. There is no warmth in those eyes, only calculation, only judgment. "You've got the look of a fool," Titus says, his voice like gravel grinding beneath a wheel. "They always do it first. Come." They walk through passages that seem carved from the very foundation of Rome itself. The air grows thicker, more alive with the presence of animals. The horses sense them before they arrive at the training grounds. A massive open chamber reveals itself, its ceiling lost in shadow despite the dozens of torches casting flickering light across the space. Here, 4 massive teams are hitched to practice chariots, their drivers putting them through intricate patterns that demand absolute precision and unbreakable will. Marcus watches as a veteran charioteer named Gaius guides his team through a dangerous turn. The man sits perfectly centered in his chariot, reins wrapped around his torso, his body moving with the fluid grace of someone who has made this motion 10,000 times. The horses respond to his subtle shifts, understanding the language of his hands and the whispers of his voice. For a moment, Marcus sees not a man struggling against animals, but a creature unified with them, moving as one being toward some distant triumph. Then disaster unfolds in an instant. A younger charioteer misjudges his approach, and his right wheel clips the corner post. The chariot lurches. The crowd of trainers watching from the side makes no sound. They have seen this before. The young driver manages to steady his team, but his face has gone pale, and Titus nods knowingly to Marcus. That carelessness costs men their lives in the arena. Titus says quietly, a moment of distraction, a split second of hesitation. Out there on the track, surrounded by 3 other teams, racing at speeds that would terrify ordinary men, there is no margin for error. Your hands must know what to do before your mind can think. Your instincts must be sharper than a gladiator's sword. He leads Marcus to a smaller, enclosed pen where a single horse stands waiting. It is a magnificent animal, black as midnight, with intelligent eyes that seem to look straight through the young man standing before it. "This is Fury," Titus says. "He will teach you more than any man in Rome can. He will teach you what it means to be worthy. He will teach you what it means to fail." For hours that feel like days, Marcus is guided through the basics. He learns to stand in the chariot without falling. He learns to hold the reins with the proper tension. He learns that his body must become a shock absorber for forces that feel impossible to control. He learns that the slightest miscalculation sends pain radiating through his legs and back. He learns that the horses are not his servants, but his partners in a dance where one mistake can shatter both participants. By the time evening falls and the training grounds empty of their activity, Marcus is drenched in sweat and bleeding from small cuts where the reins have bitten into his palms. Other drivers pass him, some nodding with something that might be respect, others looking away as if he is already a ghost. The Lannisters' words echo in his mind as he is herded with the other competitors toward the sleeping quarters. This is his life now. This is his fate. That night, lying on straw in the slave quarters, Marcus listens to the snores of his fellow competitors and understands that he has entered a world where only the strongest survive, and death waits at every turn. Severus stands before Marcus with eyes that miss nothing, assessing him with the gaze of a merchant counting coins. The Lannister circles him slowly, his weathered face creased with the weight of decades spent evaluating human flesh and potential. In the training yard of the Ludus, dust motes dance in the golden afternoon light, and the sounds of other charioteers fade into background rhythm as this singular attention settles upon the young man. The morning had begun like any other in the slave quarters. Marcus had woken before dawn to the familiar sounds of men preparing for another brutal day of training. His muscles still ached from the previous day's work, the harnesses biting into his shoulders, the reins burning his palms. But something had shifted. Word had spread through the ludus that Severus himself would observe the training sessions, and that he had taken particular notice of one of the newer recruits. That recruit was Marcus. Severus had purchased him weeks ago, a calculated investment among dozens of others. Most Lannisters dealt in volume, acquiring and training multiple charioteers to stack the odds in their favor. But something about Marcus had caught the older man's attention during those first brutal weeks. Perhaps it was the way his hands naturally understood the reins, or the instinctive balance he maintained even when pushed to exhaustion. Perhaps it was something less tangible, a hunger in his eyes that spoke of a man who had everything to gain and nothing left to lose. Now, standing in the practice arena with the sun beating down upon them, Severus began to speak. His voice carried the raspy texture of a man who had spent a lifetime shouting orders across racing grounds and gambling dens. He told Marcus things that no other Lannister would dare articulate so plainly. He spoke of the mathematics of victory, the careful calculation of timing and positioning. He explained how races were won not merely through speed, but through the reading of wind and track, through the understanding of horses as intelligent beings rather than mere beasts of burden. More importantly, Severus spoke of wealth. He painted pictures of purses so substantial they made Marcus's breath catch. He described the patronage of wealthy Romans, the golden rewards bestowed upon triumphant charioteers, the fame that spread through the empire like wildfire. But alongside these visions came a harder truth. Severus explained that such success required more than talent. It demanded absolute dedication and willingness to sacrifice everything, a partnership between master and slave that transcended the ordinary relationship. The Lannisters' calculations were clear. Marcus represented an opportunity unlike any other he had encountered in his long career. In the young man's desperation and natural ability, Severus saw the possibility of creating something extraordinary, a charioteer who could dominate the races, who could bring glory and immense fortune not just to the ludus, but to Severus himself. In Rome's racing world, such success meant elevation, respect, and wealth beyond measure. That afternoon, Marcus's training transformed. Where before he had practiced alongside the other competitors in a more general fashion, Severus now kept him separate, directing his work with meticulous precision. The Lannister corrected his posture with harsh words and occasional physical demonstration. He adjusted his grip on the reins, showing him how to communicate with his horses through the subtle language of tension and release. He had Marcus practice the turns of the track repeatedly, over and over, until the movements became so ingrained they lived in his muscles rather than his conscious mind. The other slaves noticed the change immediately. Some watched with envy, others with fear. In the hierarchy of the ludus, selection by the Lannister himself for personal training meant you were either destined for greatness or marked for death. There was no middle ground. As evening descended and the training finally concluded, Marcus stood dripping with sweat and breathing heavily. Severus regarded him with something approaching satisfaction, a look that suggested his initial assessment had been confirmed. The Lannister placed a single hand briefly on Marcus's shoulder, a gesture that meant more than any words could convey. As Marcus practices beneath the Lannister's watchful eye, he begins to understand that his slavery has transformed into something else entirely. A strange partnership between master and servant, bound together by ambition and the dream of impossible glory. The roar of the crowd crashes over Marcus like a wave as he grips the reins of the four matched horses for the first time in actual competition. His palms are slick with sweat, despite the cool morning air that that hangs over the Circus Maximus. Around him, the marble tiers rise like the sides of a mountain, packed with thousands of spectators whose voices blend into a sound almost physical in its intensity. The Lannister stands at the barrier, arms crossed, his weathered face betraying nothing as he watches his latest investment take to the sand. The other 3 charioteers line up beside Marcus, and he recognizes the nervous energy that radiates from them as clearly as his own. 2 are veterans of minor races, their red faction tunics worn but respectable. The third is a slave like himself, though older, with scars mapping his shoulders like a geography of survival. Marcus forces himself to breathe steadily, remembering the countless hours of practice, the muscle memory built through repetition and sweat. His horses sense his tension and prance, their breath steaming in the cool morning light. The signal drops, and they explode forward into motion. Marcus discovers immediately that practice bears little resemblance to the chaos of actual competition. The sand shifts unpredictably beneath the wheels. The crowd's roar becomes a living thing that seems to push against his concentration. His horses, obedient in training, become something wilder here, responding not just to his hands, but to the energy of thousands screaming their names and fates. He holds the inside track, a position he learned to claim early, and feels the surge of something approaching joy as the animals surge forward. Then the scarred slave moves beside him with brutal efficiency. Marcus sees it a moment too late. The man doesn't crash into him, but rather guides his team with surgical precision, closing the gap between them with such speed that Marcus must choose between collision and yielding. He yields, pulling hard on the right reins, and feels the abrupt shift as his chariot loses its line. The crowd groans at the maneuver, but this is the Circus Maximus, where such tactics exist in a gray space between cunning and cheating. For 3 laps around the oval track, Marcus struggles to regain his position, learning with each moment why experience matters. The scarred slave drives with the confidence of a man who has survived dozens of races, perhaps hundreds. He knows how to use his body weight to balance the chariot on turns, when to accelerate, and when to conserve the horse's strength. Marcus, by contrast, feels raw and uncertain, his youth a liability rather than an asset. Yet something within him refuses to surrender. On the 5th lap, as they approach a particularly tight turn near the wooden barrier, Marcus sees his chance. The scarred man has positioned his team wide to prevent anyone passing on the inside. But there is a space, barely sufficient, along the rail. Marcus has never attempted such a maneuver outside of solitary practice. His horses have never trusted him to guide them through such proximity to disaster. He takes a breath and commits, trusting not his experience but his instinct, his desperation, his burning hunger to prove himself worthy of the Lannisters' belief. His chariot screams along the barrier, wheels nearly brushing the wood. For a moment, the crowd seems to hold its collective breath. Then he emerges from the turn ahead of his rival, and the roar is deafening. His heart hammers against his ribs as he drives the final lap, maintaining his lead through sheer force of will and the magic of perfect coordination between himself and 4 magnificent creatures beneath the Roman sun. He crosses the finish line in first place, drenched in sweat and sand, gasping as if he has run the entire distance himself. As he brings the horses to a controlled walk, the scarred slave pulls alongside him. There is no anger in the man's eyes, only a grim acknowledgement of something both recognized and respected. The veteran nods slightly, and Marcus understands that he has passed some invisible threshold. Battered but unbroken, Marcus walks away from the track, understanding that the Circus Maximus is not merely a place of sport. It is a battleground where men come to test the very limits of their mortality. Marcus ventures from the stables for the first time since his arrival in Rome, sent by Severus to purchase leather for the chariot harnesses. The task is simple enough: though the city itself overwhelms him with its sheer enormity and chaos. Streets teem with merchants hawking their wares, voices layering upon voices in a symphony of commerce that echoes off the ancient stone buildings. The sun beats down mercilessly, and he clutches the coin purse at his belt, moving through the crowded marketplace with the careful deliberation of someone still learning the rhythms of this vast imperial center. The leather merchant's stall sits near the forum, nestled between a vendor selling amphorae of wine and another displaying bolts of colorful fabric. Marcus approaches methodically, his mind focused on the specific thickness and suppleness Severus requires. But as he kneels to examine the hides spread across the merchant's table, his attention drifts sideways to a nearby stall overflowing with pomegranates. The fruit gleams like jewels in the afternoon light, their deep crimson skin catching the sun's rays and scattering them like embers. It is here that he first sees her. She moves through the crowd with an elegance that seems entirely incongruous with the pushing masses around her. Her pale linen stola drapes gracefully, and her dark hair falls in carefully arranged waves down her back, adorned with a delicate circlet of silver. She pauses before the pomegranate vendor, extending one slender hand toward the fruit, as though selecting something precious and fragile. There is a deliberateness in her movement, a studied grace that speaks of privilege and careful upbringing. As she reaches for a particularly fine specimen, their eyes meet across the stall of pomegranates. Time seems to suspend itself in that singular moment. Her eyes are the color of warm honey caught in candlelight, and within them lives an intelligence and curiosity that matches his own. For just an instant, the marketplace falls away. The vendors' calls become distant murmurs. The crushing crowd dissolves into irrelevance, and there exists only the space between them and this inexplicable recognition that passes without words. She is the first to look away, a faint blush coloring her cheeks as she turns slightly, as though suddenly aware of propriety. Yet her gaze drifts back toward him once more, brief and almost questioning, before she returns her attention to the pomegranates with renewed focus. The merchant begins wrapping fruit in palm leaves for her, and Marcus realizes he has been standing motionless, the leather samples forgotten in his hands. She conversed with the vendor with the ease of someone accustomed to being heard and obeyed, her voice carrying the refined accent of the patrician class. Marcus hears fragments of her words as she negotiates gently for the finest fruit, her tone warm and without the sharp imperiousness he might have expected. She laughs at something the merchant says, and the sound carries across the marketplace like a bell, genuine and unguarded. Every fiber of his being urges him to remain rooted to his spot, to continue watching as she selects her purchases. But he forces himself to return attention to the leather merchant. His hands move through the hide examination with practiced efficiency, while his mind remains elsewhere entirely. When he glances back toward the pomegranate stall, she is preparing to depart, the vendor loading her with packages wrapped and tied carefully. She pauses at the stall's edge, seeming to cast one final glance in his direction, though whether it is deliberate or merely chance, he cannot determine. Then she is gone, absorbed into the river of the crowd, moving toward the direction of the finer residential districts. Her figure becomes smaller and smaller, until it vanishes completely among the taller forms of other shoppers and the architectural features of the surrounding structures. Marcus stands holding the leather samples, his heart racing in a manner entirely unfamiliar. He has trained his body to withstand the brutal punishment of chariot racing, has learned to master fear and pain through discipline and will. Yet in this moment, facing no opponent, no whip, no danger of any kind, he feels utterly defenseless. As he watches her disappear into the crowd, Marcus realizes that he has witnessed something far more dangerous than any chariot race: the unmistakable spark of love igniting within his slave's heart. In the days that follow the chance encounter, Marcus finds himself unable to concentrate on anything but the memory of dark eyes and a gentle smile. The morning sun spills across the training grounds of the Circus Maximus, casting long shadows between the wooden posts where his team practices their formations. Marcus sits upon his chariot, the reins loose in his hands, while around him the other drivers execute their maneuvers with sharp precision. The horses sense his distraction immediately, their movements becoming sluggish and uncertain, mirroring the confusion in their master's mind. Quintus, his oldest rival and training partner, rides alongside him and lets out an exasperated shout. "Your thoughts are scattered like grain before the wind. Marcus, what troubles you?" The older charioteer's weathered face creases with concern, though his tone carries the irritation of someone whose own performance suffers when the team cannot synchronize properly. Marcus offers a hollow explanation about the heat, about fatigue from the previous week's races, but even he can hear the falseness in his own voice. That evening, instead of retiring to his quarters in the driver's quarters, Marcus finds his feet carrying him toward the marketplace. He tells himself it is merely coincidence, that he needs provisions, perhaps fresh bread or oil for his chariot's axles. The marketplace is vast and sprawling, filled with hundreds of merchants calling out their wares, countless faces, blending into an indistinguishable sea of humanity. Yet his eyes search for one face among them all, scanning every corner, every shadowed alcove, every cluster of people gathered around a vendor's stall. He does not find her that evening, nor the next. 3 times he returns to the marketplace, each visit carefully timed to match the hour of their first meeting, each visit ending in quiet disappointment. His fellow racers begin to notice his absences, the whispers starting among the men who share his dormitory. Where does the great Marcus disappear to each day? Does he seek favor with some courtesan? Perhaps he has grown weary of racing and seeks some other interest. The questions sting, not because they are asked, but because they force him to confront the absurdity of his own behavior. On the 4th day, when he finally glimpses her again, his heart nearly stops entirely. She stands at a silk merchant's stall, running her fingers across fabric the color of twilight. She wears the same simple tunic as before, unmarked by the fine clothing that would indicate wealth or status. Her mother stands beside her, older and carrying the same graceful bearing, and they speak in hushed tones that Marcus cannot hear from his position across the square. He should leave. Every rational thought screams at him to turn away, to mount his horse and return to the circus, to surrender himself completely to the demands of his training. But instead he finds himself moving forward, his feet carrying him through the crowd, drawn by a force beyond his understanding or control. He stops at a nearby vendor, pretending to examine amphorae of wine while keeping her in his peripheral vision, feeling like a thief stealing glimpses of something impossibly precious and equally forbidden. She does not see him. She and her mother complete their purchase of the twilight silk and disappear back into the crowded streets, leaving Marcus standing alone among the merchants' wares, the vendor asking repeatedly if he wishes to purchase anything. He leaves without buying a single thing, his mind whirling with the brief moment he has witnessed, replaying it over and over as though he might extract some deeper meaning from it. That night, lying on his narrow bed in the dormitory, listening to the snores and shifting of the other drivers around him, Marcus acknowledges the truth he has been avoiding. It is no longer mere attraction or passing fancy. The thought of her dark eyes has begun to possess him completely. He wonders what her name might truly be, what her circumstances are, who her family might be, whether she might ever think of him as he thinks of her. He knows that his feelings are dangerous, perhaps more dangerous than any competitor on the track, but he cannot find it within himself to extinguish the flame that now burns within his chest. Fortune smiles upon Marcus when he discovers Livia alone near the temple, standing beneath marble columns that seem to glow golden in the afternoon light. He has spent weeks moving through the streets of Rome, with this very hope burning in his chest, though he has hardly allowed himself to believe such fortune could be his. Today, as he passes the Temple of Venus on his way from the training grounds, there she stands, her pale stola luminous against the stone, her dark hair adorned with a simple wreath of myrtle leaves. Marcus's heart quickens, and he must steady himself before approaching. She is making an offering, her hand extended gracefully toward the altar as she whispers words meant only for the goddess of love. The irony is not lost on him. He watches as she places her gift, what appears to be a small votive inscribed with her prayer, upon the stone's surface. Her lips move softly, and whatever she wishes for, she wishes with evident sincerity. He moves closer, his footsteps deliberate but quiet against the marble tiles. When she turns from the altar, she starts, her eyes widening with surprise as she finds him standing there. For a moment, neither speaks. The afternoon air seems to hold its breath between them, and Marcus can see the flutter of her pulse at her throat, the sudden flush that colors her cheeks. She is not indifferent to his presence. This much is written plainly upon her face. The goddess must receive many prayers, Marcus says softly, his voice carefully pitched so that only she might hear. I wonder what offering could be precious enough to bring someone as remarkable as you to her altar. Livia's eyes dart briefly toward her attendants, who stand at a respectful distance, occupied with examining the carved details of a nearby column. She turns back to Marcus, and he sees the conflict in her expression, the desire to speak with him warring against the propriety that constrains her every action. A merchant's daughter learns to make offerings for her father's ventures. She replies, her voice barely above a whisper. The goddess favors those who pray with sincerity, or so I have been taught. But you did not come to the Temple of Venus to discuss prayers, did you, Marcus? His name in her mouth is like wine. He has not heard her speak it before, and the intimacy of it sends warmth flooding through his limbs. That she knows his name, that she has perhaps spoken it in private moments, thrills him beyond measure. I confess the goddess is sometimes generous in guiding my footsteps, he says, allowing himself a small smile. I have thought of you since our meeting in the forum. I have thought of little else. You should not, Livia says, but her voice wavers, and her gaze does not leave his face. My father has plans for my future, Marcus, plans that would not include a charioteer, however skilled, however. She stops, and a deeper blush rises in her cheeks. However much I might have thought of you as well. The confession, carefully guarded though it is, feels like a gift beyond measure. Marcus steps slightly closer, drawn by an invisible thread, though he takes care to maintain propriety. Then I will not ask you to abandon your duty, he says quietly. I ask only this, that you know that someone in Rome sees you, truly sees you, and that the sight of you has transformed him in ways he cannot yet comprehend. That is enough. It must be enough. Livia's eyes glisten, and she bites her lower lip to steady herself. Her hands tremble slightly at her sides, and Marcus wishes desperately that he could take them in his own, could offer comfort and assurance. But he cannot. Not here. Not now. You have always been warned that the gods are jealous and cruel, she whispers. Do not make yourself an offering to Venus, Marcus. Do not sacrifice your future for a moment's connection. Behind her, her attendants begin to stir, sensing that their mistress's moment of solitude is ending. Livia casts one final glance at the altar before turning toward them. As her attendants escort her away, Livia turns back once to look at him, and in that moment, Marcus knows with absolute certainty that she feels the same pull toward him that he feels toward her. An old charioteer named Gaius, whose body bears the scars of decades of racing, reveals to Marcus the ancient path by which slaves have purchased their liberty. The two men stand together in the shadowed corner of the slave quarters, where the evening light filters through narrow windows and casts long, protective shadows across the worn stone floor. Gaius moves slowly, each step a deliberate effort, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he settles onto a wooden bench. The other slaves have dispersed to their evening duties, leaving them in a cocoon of relative privacy that feels both precious and fragile. Marcus sits beside him, drawn by something in the old man's eyes when he had quietly beckoned him aside. Gaius has raced longer than any man currently living in the circus, and though his glory days have passed, the other slaves regard him with a reverence that borders on reverent. He has survived what few survive. He knows the architecture of a life lived on the knife's edge between death and possibility. Gaius's voice, when he speaks, sounds like wind moving through ruins. He tells Marcus of the peculium, the small fund that slaves are permitted to accumulate through victories, gifts, and careful saving. A slave might earn coin in unexpected ways, he explains, and this coin becomes theirs alone, a thread of ownership in a life otherwise wholly possessed by another. It is the law of Rome, ancient and unforgiving, but also strangely merciful in this single regard. The path to freedom, Gaius continues, requires a slave to purchase his own liberty. The price varies, but for a charioteer of Marcus's skill and earning potential, it would be substantial. The Lanista would demand compensation equal to many years of the earnings the slave generates. It is a sum that requires dedication, sacrifice, and an almost supernatural determination to acquire. Marcus listens as Gaius speaks of men he has known who pursued this dream. Some succeeded, disappearing from the circus with papers of manumission in hand, reborn into a lower class of citizen but free nonetheless. Others spent decades accumulating coin, only to fall in the arena before their goal materialized, their savings reverting to their masters like water seeping back into the earth from which it came. The old charioteer describes the mathematics of it all with the precision of someone who has studied these calculations with the intensity others reserve for prayer. The victories bring coin, sponsorship brings additional coin, careful hoarding, avoiding the temptations that surround a celebrated athlete, stretching each aureus until it transforms into multiple pieces of smaller denomination. It is a game of compound accumulation, patient and unglamorous and utterly consuming. As Gaius speaks, something shifts in the air between them. The old man leans closer, and his voice drops even lower. He speaks of a young woman he once loved, long ago when he was young and strong, and certain he would live forever. He never acquired his freedom in time to be with her. She married another, bore children, lived a life that existed parallel to his but never intersecting. She died before he ever earned enough to buy his liberty, which he finally achieved only in his declining years, freedom arriving too late to carry the weight it should have carried. Gaius looks directly into Marcus's eyes, and in that gaze is the accumulated sorrow of decades and the fierce intensity of a man imparting wisdom he paid for in blood and longing. The numbers, when Marcus finally asks them aloud, hang in the air like weights suspended above water. The sum is extraordinary. It would require not merely years, but perhaps a decade or more of unbroken victories, of constant racing, of miraculous survival through seasons that wear men down to nothing. The probability of achieving it seems impossibly small, a dream of the sort that breaks men rather than sustains them. Yet as Marcus sits with these numbers, something transforms within him. The sum is vast, but it is not infinite. It is not supernatural. It exists within the possible realm of human achievement, however distant. For the first time since the gates of the circus closed around him, Marcus sees a shape to his future that extends beyond the next race, the next day, the next desperate breath. Marcus does the calculations in his mind, and though the number seems insurmountable, he feels something crystallize within him, a purpose, a goal, a reason to survive the deadly arena ahead. When Marcus guides his quadriga across the finishing line ahead of his rivals for the first time in a major race, the sound of the crowd reaches a crescendo that seems to shake the very foundations of Rome. The roar washes over him like a wave, and for a moment, he forgets the sting of the whip, the dust coating his throat, the exhaustion burning through his muscles. He forgets that he is enslaved, that he owns nothing, that his life can be ended with a gesture from the imperial box. All he knows is the thundering affirmation of thousands of voices lifted together, calling his name, celebrating his skill, honoring what he has just accomplished on the sand of the Circus Maximus. The 4 horses beneath him are breathing hard, their bodies slicked with sweat and foam. They have run magnificently, their coordination perfect, their speed unmatched by the other teams that day. Marcus feels a swell of pride for them, these creatures that have become almost like companions in his captivity. He leans forward, speaking softly to them as he guides them into the cooling lap, praising their courage and their strength. Severus appears at the barrier before Marcus even dismounts, his weathered face transformed by an enormous smile. He grabs Marcus by the shoulders, his grip strong and genuine, and Marcus sees something he has never quite seen in his master's eyes before. Respect. Not the respect of a man for a slave he owns, but something deeper. The respect of one craftsman for another who has executed their art flawlessly. "You ran like a god," Severus says simply, and then he turns to address the crowd, raising Marcus's arm high so that the people in the stands can see the victor clearly. The cheering intensifies, and Marcus feels heat rise to his face. Names are shouted. Some curse him, some celebrate him, but they know his name. They know who he is. The next weeks blur into a succession of races, each one slightly more prestigious than the last. Severus enters him in contests held in the mornings before the major afternoon races, then gradually moves him into the afternoon slots themselves. Each victory brings purse money, and Marcus learns the precise economics of racing glory. The amount varies depending on the prestige of the competition, but even modest victories add copper and silver to his growing collection. He trains harder than ever, his body becoming almost a perfectly tuned instrument. His hands develop a kind of intuition with the reins, understanding the subtle shifts in weight and tension that communicate his will to the horses. His legs grow stronger, his back more supple. He learns to judge the turns of the track with mathematical precision, understanding exactly where to position his quadriga for the optimal line through each curve. In the evenings, as the sun bleeds gold and crimson across the Roman sky, Marcus returns to the ludus and stores his earnings in a small cloth pouch hidden beneath the hay in his sleeping quarters. He has learned not to trust anyone completely, not even the other successful racers. Everyone here is fighting for position, for status, for the chance to accumulate enough wealth to buy themselves free. The other slaves notice his winning streak. Some regard him with envy, some with a kind of hopeful admiration. If Marcus can win, perhaps they too can change their circumstances. A few approach him quietly, asking for advice on technique or training methods. He shares what he knows, understanding that their success does not diminish his own. But it is in the quiet moments before sleep that Marcus allows himself to truly process what is happening. Each victory adds to the sum, bringing the astronomical price of his freedom incrementally closer. The number is still vast, still almost incomprehensible in its magnitude, but it is no longer entirely abstract. It is becoming real in a way it never was before, taking on weight and substance. That night, Marcus carefully counts his prize money by candlelight and allows himself to believe, just for a moment, that the impossible dream might actually be within reach. The danger of their situation becomes acute when Livia's father questions her about her sudden interest in visiting the marketplace so frequently. She stands in the atrium of her family's grand home, the afternoon light casting long shadows across the marble floors, and her heart quickens as his eyes narrow with suspicion. Gaius Aurelius is not a man easily deceived. His mind, sharp as the gladius worn by soldiers in the arena, notices every small detail, every inconsistency in routine. Livia forces herself to remain perfectly still, her hands folded before her in the prescribed posture of a dutiful daughter, though her pulse drums like the hoofbeats of charging horses. The excuse she offers is carefully constructed, a story rehearsed so many times in the quiet hours before dawn that it falls from her lips with practiced ease. The merchant near the Temple of Saturn has the finest silks from the east. She explains softly, her voice as gentle as morning mist. She wishes to commission new cloth for a tunic befitting her station. The words are reasonable, ordinary, the kind of thing any young woman of her standing might say. Yet she watches her father's face, searching for any sign that he sees through the delicate web of her deception. His expression remains unreadable as he regards her for what feels like an eternity, though it cannot be more than a few heartbeats. Then, with a slight nod, he returns to his correspondence, and Livia quietly retreats, her legs trembling beneath her long stola as she makes her way toward her quarters. The marketplace has become their sanctuary, though it is also a place of terrible risk. Among the throngs of merchants hawking their wares, amid the din of haggling voices and the smell of bread and spices, Marcus and Livia can steal moments that would be unthinkable elsewhere. He passes her items to examine, their fingers brushing with deliberate carelessness. When their hands touch, a current runs between them like lightning on a summer night. They speak in low voices, never looking directly at one another, discussing nothing of consequence while their eyes communicate volumes. A vendor selling clay lamps becomes their unwitting accomplice. Marcus places a small oil lamp among the others, and Livia points to it, admiring its simple design. The merchant wraps it without question, unaware that this lamp now serves as a message, a signal that Marcus has secured a meeting place for the following evening. These small communications, coded and careful, have become the rhythm of their stolen romance. In the hidden gardens behind the temple, where few citizens venture, and the moon casts everything in shades of silver and shadow, they meet when the risk feels manageable, and when the burning need to be near one another overwhelms all rational thought. Livia brings a maid with her, a young woman whose loyalty has been won with both coin and promises, and who now stands watch while Marcus and Livia speak in urgent whispers beneath the branches of ancient cypress trees. They talk of a future that seems increasingly impossible, yet neither can bring themselves to believe it truly is. Marcus speaks of saving more money, of perhaps one day proving himself worthy enough that even Gaius Aurelius might consider a union between them. Livia knows this is a fantasy, that her father would never permit his daughter to marry a charioteer, no matter how celebrated or wealthy. Yet she allows herself to hold onto the dream because the alternative is unbearable. The paranoia creeps into their every moment now. Livia catches herself speaking too freely when her father is near and forces herself into rigid silence. Marcus notices every guard, every slave who might carry tales. They have begun making contingency plans, discussing what they would do if discovered, though both know that no plan could truly protect them from the consequences of their transgression. The nights grow longer as autumn approaches, and with the lengthening darkness comes an increasing desperation. Livia's maid warns her that servants gossip, that whispers of unusual excursions have begun to circulate. There is talk among the household staff, speculation about the young mistress's frequent visits to the marketplace. Marcus and Livia understand that they must be more careful, yet neither can find the strength to stop meeting, even though they know discovery could mean catastrophe for them both. Quintus is a charioteer of the Red faction, darkly handsome and possessed of a cold, calculating nature that manifests in every move he makes upon the track. He arrives at the stables on a morning when the sun climbs over the city walls like a burning eye, casting long shadows across the sand and stone. Marcus first sees him standing beside Severus near the horse enclosures, the two men in quiet conversation, their heads bent together in a way that makes something tighten in Marcus's chest. The other drivers speak of Quintus in hushed, reverent tones. He comes from Alexandria, they say, trained in the most demanding stables of Egypt where only the strongest survive. His reputation precedes him like the dust cloud from a speeding chariot. 9 victories in his debut season. Sponsors already competing for his attention. A man who has never tasted defeat and carries himself as though he never will. When their eyes meet across the stable yard, there is no warmth in the exchange. Quintus's gaze is sharp, assessing, moving from Marcus's face down to his hands and back again, with the deliberation of a hunter evaluating prey. Marcus feels the weight of that scrutiny settle upon him, like a physical thing. He does not look away, though every instinct tells him to appear less confident, less threatening in the presence of this newcomer. Over the following days, Marcus begins to notice how Quintus watches him during practice sessions. The way his jaw tightens when Severus offers Marcus particular instruction with the horses. The way his fingers curl around the reins, as though gripping something precious when Marcus completes a turn at speeds that make the other drivers gasp. There is jealousy in those observations, sharp and bitter, and beneath it something more dangerous still. Quintus is not accustomed to sharing attention or resources. One afternoon, as Marcus leads his team of greys back to the stalls after a grueling training run, Quintus steps into his path. He does not move aside. The horses sense the tension and shift nervously, their flanks gleaming with sweat beneath the afternoon sun. Severus seems quite invested in your development, Quintus says, his voice smooth as oil poured over still water. I wonder why. You drive adequately, I suppose, but hardly with the precision of someone who has trained in the greatest academies. He pauses, letting the words settle. Tell me, how exactly did a provincial obtain such favorable treatment from the master of the stables? That interests me very much. Marcus's throat tightens. The suggestion hangs between them, unspoken but unmistakable. He thinks of Livia, of their secret meetings in the garden, of how precarious everything has become. If Quintus begins to suspect, to question, to investigate why Severus might be inclined to favor him, the threads of discovery might begin to unravel. I work harder than most, Marcus replies, keeping his voice level. Perhaps Severus recognizes that. Quintus smiles, but it is an expression without warmth. How noble, how Roman. Yet I find myself curious about the true nature of these special attentions. Perhaps I should speak with Severus myself. Perhaps we might discuss what advantages you have been granted that I, despite my proven excellence, have not received. The threat is unmistakable. Marcus realizes in that moment how vulnerable he truly is. His relationship with Livia, should it be discovered, would not merely end his position at the stables. It could cost him everything. It could place her in danger. It could bring shame upon both their families and invite the kind of retribution that the powerful in Rome deliver without hesitation or mercy. Quintus leads his own horses past Marcus, his shoulder nearly brushing against him in a gesture that is calculated to intimidate. We will race again at the next games, he says. Let us see whose superior training truly proves itself on the track. As their rivalry intensifies, Marcus realizes that the competition for wealth and prestige in the Circus Maximus is as brutal and unforgiving as any military campaign, with stakes far higher than mere bronze and silver. With each passing race, Marcus notices that the roar of the crowd seems to swell specifically when he enters the circus, as if they recognize in him something greater than an ordinary slave. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly. During his 19th victory, he hears it, a wave of sound that rises above the usual thunderous applause. His name, carried on thousands of voices, echoes through the marble stands like the voice of a god itself. The sensation settles into his chest, warm and intoxicating, more powerful than the finest wine. The wealthy patricians drink in their private chambers. The transformation happens gradually, but undeniably. Where once merchants and senators merely noted his skill with polite acknowledgement, now crowds gather in the streets when he passes. Children point and whisper. Merchants offer him goods at discounted prices, hoping for his patronage. Women throw flowers before his chariot, their faces radiant with admiration. The common people, the plebeians whose lives are spent in labor and struggle, see in Marcus something they themselves wish to become. He represents possibility. He represents the miraculous notion that a slave, born with nothing, can seize greatness through will and determination. By his 23rd victory, entire sections of the circus have become devoted to his admirers. They arrive hours before dawn to secure their seats, painting their faces in his racing colors. They create songs about him, simple melodies that spread through the lower quarters of Rome like wildfire. Street vendors sell crude clay figurines bearing his likeness. The Reds and the Blues, those ancient factions that have dominated circus racing for generations, suddenly find themselves competing for his loyalty. Both teams offer him extraordinary sums to wear their colors exclusively. Both teams promise him more golden denarii than he ever dreamed possible. The power of this newfound fame intoxicates him in ways he never anticipated. When he stands in the circus, preparing his horses, he feels the weight of countless eyes upon him. These eyes transform him from a mere participant into something mythical. They expect him to win. They demand it. And increasingly, Marcus finds himself rising to meet those expectations. His victories become not just his own, but the victories of thousands who depend upon him for hope, for entertainment, for proof that their world holds magic and possibility. Yet with this adoration comes a peculiar kind of burden. Marcus becomes aware that visibility brings consequences. His movements are watched. His choices are scrutinized. Political figures who previously paid him no attention now approach him with offers and suggestions. A senator approaches one afternoon, inviting Marcus to a private gathering where wealthy men discuss matters of influence and power. A magistrate comments that Marcus's continued success might depend upon his awareness of certain political arrangements. The veiled threats are gentle but unmistakable. He thinks of Livia during these moments. Their secret meetings have become more precious and more precarious. As his fame increases, so too does the risk of their forbidden connection being discovered. A senator's daughter and a slave charioteer could never exist in the world's view as anything but scandal. Yet her love remains his only anchor to his true self, untouched by the crowd's expectations. During a quiet moment in the stables, Marcus allows himself to truly consider what has happened to him. The boy who once desired nothing, but his freedom has become something more complicated, something celebrated, something powerful in the eyes of ordinary people, yet something simultaneously fragile and monitored by forces far greater than himself. The prize money accumulates steadily, each victory bringing him measurably closer to purchasing his own freedom. Yet each victory also increases his value to others. Owners of racing teams will fight harder to keep him. Wealthy patrons will demand more of his time. Political enemies might see him as a threat worth eliminating. He stands among his beloved horses, their warm breath the only comfort he truly understands anymore. They do not care about the crowds or the politics or the dangerous game he plays. They know only his voice and his hands and his skill. In their presence, he can breathe. He understands now that popularity is a double-edged sword. It increases his prize money and his path to freedom, but it also makes him more visible, more vulnerable, and more dangerous to those who might wish to see him fail. Senator Callius arrives at the stables one evening, his purple-trimmed toga marking him as a man of considerable influence and dangerous power. The older man moves with the unhurried confidence of someone accustomed to having doors open before he knocks. Servants scatter at his approach, and conversation bend to his will. Marcus is grooming Tempestus when the senator's shadow falls across the stall, and he feels that peculiar tightening in his chest that comes when the powerful take notice. The senator does not wait for Marcus to acknowledge him. He simply begins speaking, his voice carrying the smooth assurance of decades spent persuading men in marble halls. He has been watching Marcus race, he says. Remarkable performances, truly remarkable. The kind of performances that suggest a man of uncommon talent, uncommon ambition, uncommon potential for growth. His bets on Marcus have been extraordinarily profitable. 3 races, 3 victories, 3 substantial purses that have made their way into his own coffers. The senator smiles as he says this, as though sharing a secret pleasure with an old friend. Marcus continues grooming the horse, his hands moving with practiced rhythm even as his mind races ahead, calculating angles, assessing threats. He knows what this visit means. Success at the circus attracts attention, and attention from men like Senator Callias is never simple generosity. Nothing in Rome is ever simple generosity. The senator moves closer, his rings catching the lamplight as he gestures expressively. He speaks of patronage, of connections, of a man like Marcus potentially gaining freedoms far beyond what simple prize money might provide. A patron of the senator's standing could arrange things. Influence could flow downward, like water finding its level. But of course, such arrangements require reciprocity. It requires understanding, commitment, loyalty. These are the foundations upon which the greatest men in Rome build their empires. Marcus finally speaks, his voice measured and respectful, the tone he has learned to use with those who hold power over his fate. He expresses his gratitude for the senator's attention, his appreciation for the man's confidence in his abilities. He speaks carefully, choosing each word as though selecting stones to build a wall between himself and dangerous depths. He thanks the senator for the honor of his patronage, but even as the words emerge, Marcus feels something cold moving through him. This man is not here out of mere admiration for chariot racing. Senators do not visit stables in the evening for entertainment. They come when they need something, when they are calculating whether a person might be useful, might be controlled, might be bent towards some purpose that serves their own ambitions. The senator's smile, his easy manner, his seemingly generous offers, all of it is the velvet glove concealing iron underneath. The senator places a hand on Marcus's shoulder, and the gesture feels like a claiming, a marking of territory. He says that he looks forward to their continued association, to the prosperity they will surely enjoy together. He mentions certain races coming in the autumn season, certain odds that might prove interesting, certain opportunities for a man with Marcus's talents and the right kind of support. Then he departs as suddenly as he arrived, his perfume lingering in the stable air like a warning. Marcus stands alone with Tempestus, his hand on the horse's neck, feeling the animal's warmth and solidity beneath his palm. He understands what has just happened. A boundary has been crossed. He has moved from being merely a skilled performer to being something more complicated, a resource to be cultivated, an asset to be leveraged, a piece in games played by men who think nothing of moving lives around on invisible boards. The prize money he earns, the fame, the crowds cheering his name, all of it has made him visible in a way that slavery never did. Invisibility, he realizes, might have been its own form of protection. Now he stands under the gaze of powerful men, and their attention, however flattering on the surface, carries weight and consequence. Marcus realizes that his success has drawn the attention of Rome's most powerful men, and that such attention, however flattering it may seem, comes with obligations and entanglements that could prove more binding than slavery itself. In a stolen moment behind the temples, Livia presses a small wooden charm into Marcus's palm, and the warmth of her touch burns more intensely than any victory could. The amulet is exquisitely carved, a a tiny horse with wings folded against its sides. Pegasus, the mythical creature rendered in pale olive wood so smooth, it seems almost to glow in the shadowed alcove where they meet. Marcus closes his fingers around the gift, feeling the weight of it settle into his hand like a stone dropping into still water. He knows immediately what this means, what she is saying without words. This is not merely a token of affection. This is a declaration of commitment, a talisman meant to keep him safe through the dangerous races that have become his life. But more than that, it is a symbol of her willingness to give him something precious, something that took time and care to create. He looks at her face in the dim light filtering through the marble columns, seeing the flush in her cheeks, the brightness in her dark eyes that speaks of both excitement and fear. She has become bolder in her defiance of propriety, bolder in showing her feelings, and each act of courage makes his chest tighten with a mixture of joy and dread. Every moment they steal together is a moment she risks everything. "Livia, you cannot," he whispers, not looking at the amulet but keeping his gaze fixed on hers. "Do you understand what you are doing? If anyone discovers this, if anyone learns of your feelings for me, your reputation will be destroyed. Your family will suffer. There are powerful men who will not tolerate such a breach." She steps closer, close enough that he can smell the rose oil that perfumes her dark hair, close enough that he must resist the urge to touch her face. "I understand perfectly," she says quietly, with a firmness that both thrills and terrifies him. "I understand that the world tells me I must marry someone of equal station, someone chosen by men who do not know my heart. I understand that loving you is forbidden, that even speaking with you brings dishonor upon my name. I understand all of it, Marcus, and I have decided I no longer care." Marcus's throat tightens. "Your future is at stake. Your children, your place in society, everything you have been born to." "My future," she interrupts softly, "is a shadow without you in it. I would rather walk through Rome as a woman who loved truly than spend my life as a matron, bound to a man I do not know, bearing children of a marriage arranged for land and position. Life is so brief, Marcus. Why should I waste it on fear?" He opens his hand and looks down at the carved Pegasus, at the delicate wings, the perfect proportions. Someone patient and skilled created this. Someone who understands both craft and symbolism. The message is clear. That he should fly, that he should soar above his circumstances, that he should be brave. "Guard it," she says. "Let it remind you that there is someone in Rome who believes in you, who sees not just the charioteer but the man beneath. Promise me you will wear it, that you will keep it close." Marcus nods, unable to speak. He slips the amulet beneath his tunic, feeling it rest against his chest, warm from her hand and warm from his own heart beating against his ribs. The danger of what they are doing settles over them, both like evening shadows, lengthening across the city. Every stolen moment like this one brings them closer to discovery, and he knows that eventually their luck will fail them. But for now, in this hidden corner behind the temples, with Rome's noise and bustle distant and muted, they exist in a space that belongs only to them. And when he must leave her, when he must return to his chambers and prepare for the next race, he will carry this weight with him, this reminder of sacrifice and courage. Marcus clutches the amulet throughout his next race, drawing strength from the knowledge that someone loves him enough to risk her entire life and future for their forbidden connection. As winter descends upon Rome, bringing frost to the marble stands and clouds to the ancient sky, the greatest charioteers from across the empire gather for the most prestigious races of the year. The Circus Maximus transforms into something even more magnificent than usual, with banners of crimson and gold fluttering from every archway, and the scent of roasted chestnuts and spiced wine drifting through the corridors beneath the grand stadium. Marcus stands in the depths of the stables, running his fingers along the muscular neck of his lead horse, Ventus, feeling the animal's steady heartbeat beneath his palm. The horse snorts softly, breath misting in the cold air, and Marcus whispers words of encouragement that only the creature can hear. Around him, the sounds of other competitors preparing their teams echo off the stone walls. The jingle of leather harnesses being adjusted, the sharp commands of handlers, the nervous energy that always precedes the greatest competitions. This winter season brings rivals Marcus has never faced before. Word has spread throughout the empire that champions from distant provinces are arriving to test themselves against Rome's finest. There is Decimus, a charioteer from Hispania whose aggressive driving style has left a trail of overturned chariots in his wake. There is Aurelius, a veteran driver whose tactical brilliance matches his technical skill, a man who reads the currents of a race like a sailor reads the wind. These are not men who simply wish to win. They desire dominance, immortality, the kind of fame that echoes through generations. Yet Marcus feels something different this season, something that burns beneath his chest like banked coals waiting to be fanned into flame. The amulet Livia gave him rests against his skin, and each time he touches it, he feels the weight of her sacrifice, her courage, her belief in him. She has risked everything. Her family's reputation hangs by a thread. Her future prosperity depends entirely upon his success. This knowledge terrifies him even as it fortifies his resolve. The prize money for the Winter Games is substantial beyond anything Marcus has previously earned. A single victory in the opening race could bring him closer to purchasing his freedom than 3 seasons of regular competitions combined. 2 victories would place the sum nearly within reach. 3 victories would guarantee it. He could stop being a slave in all but name, could cease belonging to the Lannister who owns him, could walk through Rome as a free man. He could stand before Livia's father without shame, could speak her name aloud without fear, could offer her a future instead of stolen moments in hidden gardens. But the cost of failure has never been higher, and the danger has never felt more acute. Marcus has heard the whispers among the other charioteers, seen the knowing looks they exchange. There is something different about this season, an electricity in the air that speaks of debts to be settled, of reputations to be made or destroyed, of wagering that extends far beyond the official betting pools. Powerful men have placed their fortunes on outcomes, and powerful men do not accept disappointment gracefully. The first race will determine everything. It will show Marcus's competitors the measure of his skill and hunger. If he wins with commanding grace, he establishes himself as the primary threat, the charioteer everyone must contend with. If he struggles, if he shows weakness, then the vultures will circle, testing him in every subsequent race, pushing him toward mistakes and disaster. There is no middle ground in the Winter Games. Marcus removes the amulet from his neck and holds it up to the weak winter light filtering through the stable opening. The carved stone seems to glow with an inner warmth. He presses it to his lips, thinking of Livia's face, her dark eyes filled with hope and terror, her hand trembling as she pressed this token into his palm. He places the amulet back against his chest and takes a deep breath. Tomorrow, the races begin. Tomorrow, he races not merely for glory or freedom, but for the woman who has wagered everything on his success. Marcus knows that the races ahead will test not just his skill and courage, but his very will to survive, and that each victory brings him closer to his dreams and closer to the precipice of disaster. Marcus arrives at the stables before dawn to inspect his chariot, as has become his habit, and discovers something that freezes his blood. The darkness of the pre-dawn hours hangs heavy over the Circus Maximus, that great arena where glory and ruin dance together in the sand. His fingers, worn and calloused from years of gripping leather reins, trace along the wooden frame of his beloved chariot with practiced care. This morning, something feels different. Something whispers danger in the shadows. He moves his hands methodically along the wheel bindings, those crucial leather straps that hold the wheels secure during the violent turns and brutal stops of the race. His breath catches. The leather on the right wheel is loose, far too loose. Not the natural loosening that comes with use, but deliberately severed. Someone has cut through nearly half the binding, leaving just enough intact to appear unbroken at first glance. A chill races down his spine. Had he not checked, had he simply mounted his chariot and driven into the arena, the wheel would have failed mid-race. At high speed, with 4 powerful horses straining against the traces, the chariot would have splintered beneath him. He would have been thrown violently into the sand, trampled by the horses behind him, or crushed beneath the weight of the overturning vehicle itself. Death would have come swiftly, painfully, and publicly, watched by thousands who gathered to see the races. His hands tremble as he carefully inspects the other wheels, finding similar damage on the left side, though less severe. Someone wants him dead. Someone wants him destroyed. Marcus sinks onto the cool stone floor, his mind racing through possibilities. Quintus, it has to be Quintus. The rivalry between them has grown teeth and fangs over these past months. Every race Marcus wins pushes him closer to earning his freedom, closer to escaping the bonds of slavery that have defined his existence. Quintus, who has never known the freedom Marcus now tastes within reach, cannot bear the thought of a slave rising above him. He stands slowly, moving through the stables with quiet purpose. His eyes scan every corner, every shadow. The air feels thick with menace. The Empire rewards victory above all things, but it also tolerates, perhaps even encourages, the methods by which competitors achieve that victory. There are no magistrates to report this to, no authorities who will protect a slave charioteer, no matter how celebrated he has become. The sky beyond the stable doors begins to lighten, shifting from black to deep purple. Already, workers are arriving to prepare for the day's races. Marcus must act quickly. He locates fresh leather and begins replacing the damaged bindings with methodical care. His hands work with desperate precision, testing each new binding with a strength that would snap it immediately if his weight bore down upon it. As he works, his mind turns to Livia. She has no knowledge of the attempts on his life, the growing desperation among his rivals, the way that glory in the arena draws enemies like blood draws sharks to the water. Should he tell her? The thought terrifies him as much as the sabotaged wheel. If she knows the danger, she will worry. If she worries, she may do something reckless. Their love, forbidden and beautiful as it is, has already placed both of them in extraordinary peril. He finishes securing the new bindings as the first rays of sunlight touch the tops of the stable walls. The chariot looks whole again, appears as it should be. But Marcus knows now that appearances mean nothing in Rome. Beauty hides corruption, glory masks brutality, and freedom, that precious thing he has worked toward with every ounce of his strength and skill, remains desperately far away. He runs his hands along the repaired wheels one final time, his heart heavy with a knowledge that cannot be unknown. The races ahead will be different now. Every moment in the arena will carry the weight of this discovery. Every competitor will be viewed with suspicion. Every rival will be counted as a potential killer. The attempted sabotage confirms what Marcus has long suspected, that there are those in Rome who would stop at nothing to prevent him from achieving his freedom, and that the competition for glory is indeed a matter of life and death. When Severus learns of Quintus's treachery, his wrath is swift and terrible, and Marcus understands the true power his Lanista wields over his competitors. The morning after Marcus reports the sabotaged equipment to the master of the stables, the entire faction gathers in the courtyard beneath the beating sun. Severus stands elevated on the wooden platform where he typically addresses his fighters, his broad shoulders blocking the light, his face carved from stone. Marcus watches from among the other charioteers as Quintus is dragged forward, his face already bruised, his tunic torn at the shoulder. The Lannister's voice carries across the yard, like thunder rolling across distant hills. He speaks of honor and betrayal, of the sacred trust that binds a factional family together. Each word falls like a hammer, strike against an anvil. Severus explains how one man's dishonesty poisons the entire household, how the gods themselves turn their faces from those who would sabotage a fellow fighter. The other charioteers stand motionless, their expressions grave, understanding that they are witnessing not merely punishment, but a demonstration of authority. Quintus receives 30 lashes across his back, while the faction watches in silence. The leather whip cuts through the air with sickening precision, and with each strike, Marcus feels something shift within the gathered crowd. This is what disloyalty costs in the stables of Rome. This is the price of envy. When it is finished, Quintus collapses into the dust, bleeding and broken, his left hand shattered deliberately by Severus's own command. He will never grip the reins of a chariot again. His career as a racer has ended in agony and disgrace. As the body is carried away to the infirmary, Severus turns his attention to Marcus. The Lannister approaches him slowly, and for a moment, Marcus wonders if he too will face punishment for bringing discord to the faction. But Severus places a heavy hand upon his shoulder, and his voice drops low, meant only for Marcus to hear. The Lannister tells him that integrity is rarer than gold in Rome, that most men would have kept silent to avoid making an enemy. He tells Marcus that his courage in reporting the crime has earned him respect, not only from the master of the stables, but from every decent fighter present. The effect on the other charioteers is immediate and profound. As the day progresses, Marcus notices them treating him differently. Men who once regarded him with cool ambivalence now nod in greeting. Drivers who competed fiercely against him in the practice races begin offering him advice about conditioning and technique. Even the stable hands, who typically serve everyone with equal indifference, seem to move more swiftly when Marcus calls for assistance. The revelation of Quintus's treachery has transformed Marcus's standing within the faction from that of a talented outsider to someone worthy of trust and fellowship. That evening, Marcus sits alone in the cooling garden behind the barracks, watching the light drain from the sky like sand through an hourglass. He reflects on the strange paradox of justice. By reporting Quintus, he has done what he believes to be right, yet he understands that he has also made a dangerous enemy of a man with nothing left to lose. Quintus will spend his days in Rome now, unable to race, unable to earn the freedom that every charioteer dreams of. The man's rage will fester like an untended wound, and Marcus knows that vindictive sorrow can be more dangerous than hot anger. Still, there is something clean in his conscience now. He has not compromised his honor for the sake of advancement or comfort. He has not chosen the path of silence that would have been simpler and safer. The other charioteers have acknowledged this choice, and their respect feels like a foundation upon which something genuine might be built. Yet Marcus remains cautious, aware that Rome's circles of power and rivalry move in ways that are not always visible to those caught within them. Though Marcus has gained a reprieve, he knows that the violation of honor in the stables has set events in motion that will echo through the remainder of the season and beyond. The secret that Marcus and Livia have guarded so carefully begins to unravel when Livia, in a moment of unguarded emotion, speaks her truth to her most trusted attendant. It happens on an ordinary afternoon in the senator's household, in the cool shadows of the women's quarters, where sunlight filters softly through linen curtains. Livia sits upon her couch, her embroidery forgotten in her lap, her eyes distant and unfocused. Her attendant, Claudia, who has served her since childhood, notices the change immediately. This is not the careful composure that Livia typically maintains, that practiced mask of proper senatorial dignity. This is something raw and unguarded. Claudia sets down her water pitcher and kneels beside her mistress with the familiarity of decades of service. She takes Livia's hand gently, and in that simple gesture of loyalty, something breaks open within the young woman's chest. The words spill forth like water through a fractured dam, unstoppable and urgent. She speaks of Marcus with such tenderness, such aching longing, that Claudia's weathered face softens with understanding. She speaks of stolen moments in the gardens, of conversations beneath the stars, of a love that defies every law and custom that Rome has ever written. She speaks of him as though he contains entire worlds within the circle of his arms. Claudia listens without judgment, her old eyes knowing and sad. She has seen much in her years, has witnessed the quiet rebellions of the heart that occur in even the most carefully ordered households. When Livia finally falls silent, exhausted by her confession, Claudia squeezes her hand and whispers that she will tell no one. It is a promise made with love, but it is a promise that cannot hold against the currents already moving through Rome's vast network of servants and slaves. The household staff exists in a shadow world beneath the awareness of their masters and mistresses, connected by invisible threads of gossip and knowledge that flow through markets and gardens, through bath houses and street corners. A word spoken to one slave becomes 3 stories by evening. A secret shared with a trusted attendant becomes common knowledge within a week. Even with Claudia's discretion, the truth leaks out like oil spreading across water. A younger servant girl overhears fragments of conversation. A gardener notices their mistress, and the charioteer speaking in the hidden corners where oleander blooms. A guard remembers seeing them together when he thought no one was watching. Marcus first becomes aware that something has changed when his fellow charioteers grow quieter around him. Their banter loses its edge. They exchange glances when they think he is not looking. His rivals smile with new knowledge, calculating how this information might serve them. At the baths, a freedman he barely knows approaches him with forced casualness and mentions having heard interesting rumors about a certain charioteer and a senator's daughter. The words are wrapped in false concern, but the intent is clear. Everyone is beginning to know. He returns to his modest rooms that evening with his stomach twisted in knots. He sits in the darkness, understanding with crystalline clarity what is happening. Rome's social order is not maintained through formal law alone, but through the constant surveillance of society itself. Every servant watches every household. Every whisper travels from quarter to quarter. They cannot hide in a city of a million eyes. What began as a carefully guarded secret has become common gossip among the lower classes, and it is only a matter of time before it reaches the ears of the patrician families who control everything. He thinks of Livia, of her father, the senator who holds power in the forum. He thinks of the scandal that will explode when the truth reaches the aristocracy. He thinks of the consequences that will fall not only on himself, but on her, a charioteer and a senator's daughter. The violation is almost too great to comprehend in Rome's rigid hierarchy. Marcus rises and paces his small room, his mind racing through impossible possibilities, searching desperately for some way to protect her, some way to escape what he now sees as inevitable. The very thing he feared most is unfolding exactly as he once imagined it would. Within days, the whispers have reached the ears of those who matter, and Marcus understands that time, the one resource he cannot control or purchase, is running out far more quickly than he had anticipated. When Livia's father summons her to his private chambers, his face dark with anger, she knows that their secret is no longer safe. The marble walls of his sanctum seem to close in around her as she enters, the afternoon light streaming through the high windows, casting long shadows across the intricate mosaic floor. Her heart beats with a wild urgency that she struggles to conceal beneath the careful composure of her posture. Her father stands before the great window overlooking the city, his silhouette rigid against the golden Roman light. For a long moment, neither speaks. The silence becomes a living thing between them, heavy with accusation and dread. When he finally turns to face her, his eyes carry a fury so profound that Livia must grip the edge of the nearby table to steady herself. He speaks her name as though it tastes of poison. He tells her that he has heard despicable rumors, whispers that have reached even the ears of his most trusted associates at the forum. A charioteer, they say, a man of the lowest station, one who sells his body and his skill for the roar of crowds and the glint of coin. The way her father speaks of Marcus makes her stomach turn, stripping away all dignity and reducing him to nothing more than a performer, a piece of merchandise to be bought and sold. Livia finds her voice, though it trembles. She insists that he does not understand, that Marcus is a good man, worthy of respect despite his circumstances. But her words seem to bounce against her father's stone-like countenance, without leaving any impression. He raises his hand, silencing her with the gesture alone, and his next words fall like an executioner's blade. She is to be confined to the villa. She will not venture beyond its walls. She will not see or speak to this man again. Moreover, he has already begun negotiations with Senator Aurelius, a widower of considerable wealth and political influence. The marriage will take place before the season turns, removing her from Rome entirely to his estates in the distant provinces. By winter, she will be a wife to a man who has already forgotten more about governance than most will ever know. And this foolish infatuation will fade into the insignificance it deserves. Livia's protests fall on ears that have already sealed themselves against her. Her father's words are final, spoken with the absolute authority that Roman law grants to the patriarch of a household. She has no recourse, no appeal, no power to resist the machinery of duty and obligation that now moves inexorably toward her future. When she begs for mercy, for time, for understanding, he turns away from her entirely, returning his gaze to the window where the city stretches endlessly below. The guards are summoned with a simple gesture. They escort her from the chamber without roughness, but with absolute certainty, their presence both protective and imprisoning. She is locked in her room on the upper floor of the villa, her chamber suddenly transformed from a sanctuary into a cell. The evening comes, and servants bring food she cannot eat. Night falls, and sleep seems like an impossible dream. In the stables across the city, Marcus learns the truth through the gossip that flows like water through the streets of Rome. A friend whispers it to him as he tends to his horses, and the words seem to drain all the blood from his body. Livia confined, Livia betrothed, Livia lost to him, slipping away like sand through his fingers. He works through the night in a state beyond rage, beyond despair, entering that strange realm where fear and determination become indistinguishable. His chariot gleams beneath the oil lamps. His horses, sensing his intensity, prance with unusual energy. The freedom price that once seemed achievable through years of careful accumulation now becomes an impossible mountain that he must somehow climb in weeks, not seasons. As Livia stands locked in her chamber, tears streaming down her face, and Marcus stands in the stables gripping his chariot reins with desperate intensity. Both understand that everything now depends on the races ahead and the speed with which Marcus can accumulate his freedom prize. The stands fall silent when the imperial entourage arrives, and Marcus feels the weight of the emperor's gaze upon him as he prepares for the race that will change everything. The air itself seems to shift. Even the horses sense it, their ears pricking forward as the procession makes its way through the archways. Purple silk catches the sunlight, and the guards form a corridor of gleaming armor. Emperor Domitian himself, the master of Rome, has come to witness the races. Marcus's hands move with practiced precision, adjusting the leather straps of his harness, but his heart quickens beneath his ribs. He has heard the whispers about the emperor, stories of his moods, his mercurial nature, his absolute power over life and death. And yet, as Marcus watches from beneath the shadow of the stable archway, something within him stills. This is not a moment to retreat into fear. This is a moment to show who he truly is. The crowd erupts as Marcus guides his team toward the track. The four horses move as one symphony, their muscles rippling like water in the morning light. The noise from above is deafening, thousands upon thousands of voices crying out, But Marcus hears none of it. There is only the gentle thunder of hooves, the singing tension of the reins, the ancient dance between man and beast that has called to something deep within him since childhood. Around the first turn, he takes the inside position with graceful precision. His competitors fall back, their less practiced hands betraying the strain of the race. Marcus leans into the curves as if his body is part of the chariot itself, reading the subtle shifts in weight, the minute adjustments that separate victory from defeat. Sweat drips down his temples, but his movements remain fluid, economical, perfect. The second lap comes, and he extends his lead further. He can feel it now, that sublime moment where skill becomes art, where the boundary between charioteer and horse dissolves entirely. This is what he was born to do. This is what gives his life meaning beyond the chains of slavery, beyond the stone walls of the ludus, beyond everything that has tried to diminish him. As Marcus rounds the final turn, something extraordinary happens. The emperor rises from his seat, not in anger, but in what appears to be genuine appreciation. The gesture sends a ripple through the entire amphitheater. Guards bow, citizens crane their necks. The imperial approval is unmistakable, almost tangible in its weight. Marcus crosses the finish line to a sound like thunder breaking across the sky. The crowd's roar is so loud that even the horses startle, and he must speak softly to calm them, his voice steady despite the electricity coursing through his veins. As he guides his team back toward the stables, a guard approaches, not to arrest him, not to punish, but to deliver a message. The emperor wishes to speak with him. Marcus's breath catches. He has heard stories of men summoned by Domitian, has heard what such summons sometimes mean. Yet he follows the guard with his head held high. The emperor's quarters are opulent beyond imagining. Gold and marble and precious stones catch the light from every direction. And there, surrounded by attendants and senators, sits the most powerful man in the world. Domitian studies Marcus with dark, intelligent eyes. His face is handsome in a sharp, angular way, and there is something almost predatory in his gaze. But when he speaks, his voice is measured, curious even. The emperor compliments his skill. He speaks of races he has witnessed across the empire, of charioteers he has seen rise to fame and fortune. And then, with a casual gesture, he announces his intention. Marcus will race again, tomorrow and the day after. The prize money will be tripled for each victory. More races, more opportunities, more chances to earn his freedom price. It is everything Marcus has dreamed of. The path that once seemed to stretch across years has suddenly contracted to mere months. Livia's face appears in his mind. Her tears, her fear, her desperate hope. With the emperor's favor comes unprecedented opportunity. Yet Marcus also understands that imperial attention is fickle and dangerous. One moment of displeasure could see him crushed as quickly as he has been elevated. When the flower seller presents Marcus with an unusual arrangement of white lilies and purple iris, he knows immediately that it is a message from Livia. His hands tremble slightly as he accepts the bundled stems from the elderly merchant, whose knowing glance tells him everything he needs to understand. The man who delivers flowers to half the senators in Rome, and to the wives of merchants seeking favor, has become an unlikely conspirator in their carefully guarded affection. Marcus carries the arrangement back to his modest quarters near the stables, moving with deliberate casualness despite the urgency beating in his chest. The other charioteers barely glance at him as he passes, too absorbed in their own concerns and competitions to notice their rival receiving flowers. Once safely inside, he closes the wooden door and examines the bouquet more closely. The white lilies speak of devotion, their petals soft as silk, and their fragrance filling the small room with a sweet, haunting presence. The purple iris, those flowers of valor and wisdom, seem to whisper of something deeper, something that transcends the ordinary world and its rigid boundaries. His fingers work carefully through the stems until he discovers what he sought. There, wrapped tightly and hidden within the greenery, is a small roll of parchment, barely wider than his finger. His heart pounds as he unfurls it, and in the fading afternoon light that streams through the small window, he reads Livia's words written in careful, elegant script. She has risked much to send this message, and he can see in the slight tremor of her handwriting the emotion she has poured into every letter. She writes of her love for him, words that seem to pour from her very soul onto the fragile parchment. She tells him she understands the impossible nature of their situation, that she knows he must focus on the races and on earning the favor that might one day grant him the freedom his enslaved status has stolen from him. Yet she promises him something more valuable than all the gold in Rome's imperial treasury. She promises that she will wait, no matter how long it takes, no matter what obstacles rise between them. She will hold his image in her heart and her mind. She will wait. She writes of the stolen moments they have shared, of conversations whispered in shadowed corners of the forum, of hands that have briefly touched in the darkness when no one was watching. She writes of dreams she harbors, dreams that in any other time and place would seem utterly reasonable, yet in their world seem as distant as the stars themselves. A home together, children who might bear his eyes and her grace, a simple, ordinary life lived in each other's presence, free from the weight of imperial scrutiny and the chains of social hierarchy that have bound them since birth. There is also a plea woven through her words, though she expresses it gently. She begs him not to abandon hope, not to surrender to the weight of his circumstances. She reminds him of the victories he has already achieved, races won against impossible odds, the way Rome itself has begun to speak his name with reverence usually reserved for gods. She writes that if any man alive possesses the strength to break the chains of his bondage, it is he. The final words are the most tender, written in slightly larger script, as if she wanted him to feel the emphasis of her conviction. She tells him that their love is not a weakness or a liability. It is instead a source of power, a reason to strive beyond the limits he thought he possessed. It is the knowledge that someone waits for him, someone believes in him beyond measure, someone would sacrifice everything simply to be near him. Reading the words inscribed on the hidden parchment, Marcus feels tears burn his eyes for the first time since childhood, and he vows that he will win every race that lies before him until he has earned the freedom to claim the woman he loves. Nikos arrives in Rome with a reputation that precedes him like the shadow of a god, an Egyptian charioteer who has never tasted defeat in over 200 races. The whispers begin in the taverns along the Tiber, spreading through the markets of the Forum like wildfire carried on summer wind. Even the senators speak of him in hushed, reverent tones as they recline in their villas, wine cups poised before their lips. A man from Alexandria, they say, whose hands seem to possess some ancient magic, whose horses respond to his will as though they share a single heartbeat with their master. The crowd's anticipation swells with each passing day, a palpable electricity that charges the very air of the city. Marcus first sees Nikos in the stables of the Circus Maximus, where the Egyptian charioteer walks among the finest horses Rome can offer, examining them with the careful eye of a connoisseur appraising precious gems. There is something almost ethereal about him. Tall and lean, his skin the color of burnished bronze, his eyes dark and penetrating, capable of seeing through flesh into the depths of a man's soul. When their gazes meet across the stable yard, Marcus feels something shift within him, a recognition not of weakness, but of worthy opposition. This is no ordinary competitor. This is destiny itself, arriving on horseback. The races begin on a sweltering afternoon, when the sun beats down upon the sand of the circus with relentless fury. Thousands upon thousands gather in the stands, their voices rising in a cacophony of hope and hunger, of coin wagered and fortunes hung in the balance. Marcus guides his team of 4 whites through the opening procession, feeling the familiar weight of expectation settle upon his shoulders like a mantle. But today, the weight feels different. Today, it feels purposeful, as though every muscle, every nerve, every breath has been leading him toward this singular moment. The race itself becomes a dance of strategy and courage, a conversation written in dust and thunder. Marcus pushes his horses to their limits, navigating the turns with the precision of a musician playing a beloved instrument. Yet Nikos matches him stride for stride, and then, imperceptibly, begins to pull ahead. The crowd roars with a sound like distant thunder, and Marcus feels something ignite within his chest. Not rage, but determination so pure it burns like sacred fire. His hands steady on the reins, his body moving in perfect harmony with the beasts beneath him. And slowly, so slowly that at first no one quite believes it, he begins to close the gap. The final stretch approaches, and both chariots are so close they might touch. Marcus can see the sweat glistening on Nikos' shoulders, can hear the ragged breathing of the horses, can feel the entire city holding its breath. In this moment, he thinks of Livia waiting in the hidden gardens, unaware that her freedom from sorrow depends upon his strength. He thinks of the words inscribed on that parchment, and they give him wings. With a surge that seems to come from some primal place deep within his being, Marcus guides his team across the finish line, mere inches ahead of the Egyptian. The stadium erupts. It is a sound that shakes the very foundations of Rome, a roar that echoes off marble and stone and carries across the 7 hills. Marcus slows his horses, his heart thundering in his chest, his breath coming in deep, grateful gasps. When he glances back, he sees Nikos slowing as well, and to his great surprise, the champion is smiling, not with resentment, but with a kind of respect that transcends mere competition. But there will be other races. As the crowd continues its ecstatic celebration around him, Marcus knows with absolute certainty that Nikos will demand rematches, that their rivalry will define this season, and perhaps many more to come. The Egyptian's defeat has only sharpened his hunger, yet Marcus has tasted something he never expected to find: a glimpse of his own capacity for greatness. As Marcus prepares to face this legendary competitor, he realizes that this may be the defining moment of his life, the race that will either launch him toward his freedom and Livia, or condemn him to permanent slavery and despair. In the days preceding the race against Nikos, Marcus moves through Rome in a kind of sacred meditation, visiting temples and seeking the favor of every god who might listen. The city awakens around him each morning, yet he exists in his own hushed world, his footsteps echoing through marble corridors and down ancient stone stairs as dawn breaks in shades of rose and amber. He begins at the Temple of Mars, where incense coils upward like the spirits of warriors past. The priest there knows Marcus by name now, recognizes the hunger in his eyes, and places a weathered hand upon his shoulder. Together they stand before the god of war and strategy, and Marcus whispers prayers not for violence, but for clarity, for the sharp focus of mind that separates champions from the rest. The priest offers him oil blessed under moonlight, and Marcus anoints his shoulders, feeling the cool liquid settle upon his skin like a benediction. By midday, he finds himself in the quieter temple of Diana, where the light falls through high windows in long golden shafts. Here, among the columns dedicated to the huntress, he kneels and asks for swiftness, for the grace of a deer fleeing through forests, for the kind of instinctive knowledge that comes not from thinking but from pure being. Women light candles nearby, their voices soft in prayer, and Marcus draws comfort from their gentle devotion, wondering if Livia prays too, if she lights candles somewhere in the city and whispers his name to the heavens. The physical preparations occupy his afternoons. Gaius meets him at the training grounds beyond the city's edge, where dust rises in golden clouds and the smell of horse and leather fills the air. The old charioteer has taught Marcus everything he knows, and now, on these final days, they refine the smallest details. Gaius watches as Marcus practices his turns. The way he leans into the curve, the moment he shifts his weight forward to urge the horses faster. The timing must be perfect. Gaius reminds him, his voice rough but not unkind. In a race against Nikos, there is no room for hesitation or second-guessing. They discuss strategy as the sun descends. Nikos is predictable in his aggression. Gaius explains, leaning against the fence rail with the wisdom of a man who has watched countless races. He charges hard at the start, burns his horse's energy in the opening laps, and becomes vulnerable in the final stretch when his animals tire. Marcus must run patient, must hold back and let Nikos exhaust himself, must wait for that moment when the legendary Charioteer cannot give anymore. It is a strategy that requires tremendous discipline, the ability to resist the crowd's roar, and the thundering of his own heartbeat. As evening settles over Rome, Marcus finds himself drawn once more to the Temple of Venus. Here, in the flickering candlelight, he allows himself to think of Livia. He touches the small amulet she gave him, the one he has hidden beneath his tunic since that night in the garden, and he speaks silent words of devotion to the goddess of love. Not a prayer for victory, but a prayer of gratitude. Whatever tomorrow brings, he has already experienced something transcendent. He has known her smile, felt her hand in his, heard her voice tremble his name into the darkness. These things, he realizes, are victories beyond any race. The night before falls soft and forgiving. Back in his small quarters, Marcus prepares his chariot with ritualistic care, checking every leather strap, every knot, running his hands over the wood as though he can transfer his will into its very fiber. He polishes the bronze fixtures until they gleam like captured stars. When he finally lies down to sleep the night before the race, Marcus holds Livia's amulet close to his heart and feels a profound peace, knowing that whatever happens on the track, he has already achieved something far greater. He has loved, and been loved in return. The entire Circus Maximus seems to hold its breath as Marcus guides his quadriga onto the track, facing his most formidable opponent, while the afternoon sun casts long shadows across the sand. The roar that erupts from the crowd is deafening, a wave of sound that crashes down upon the arena like the sea itself has risen to witness this moment. Marcus feels the weight of destiny upon his shoulders, but beneath it lies something stronger, the memory of Livia's touch, the promise held within her amulet that rests against his chest beneath his tunic. Nikos sits across the track, a figure carved from legend itself. His horses are the finest in all the empire, their coats gleaming like polished bronze, their eyes burning with the fire of countless victories. The crowd's anticipation thickens the very air, and Marcus steadies his breathing, running his palms along the reins one final time. The trumpets sound, pure and clear, and the gates spring open. They burst forward together, hooves thundering against the sand in a rhythm that seems to shake the foundations of Rome itself. The first lap is a dance of precision and power, neither charioteer willing to yield an inch. Marcus leans into the curves with practiced grace, his muscles remembering every turn, every subtle shift of weight that makes the difference between victory and defeat. Nikos matches him stride for stride, and the crowd rises as one, their voices creating a tapestry of sound that fills the vast arena from floor to sky. The second lap brings the first change of fortune. Marcus spots an opening on the inside of the turn, a narrow ribbon of space that exists for only a heartbeat. He threads his quadriga through with daring precision, pulling slightly ahead. The crowd erupts, but Nikos is relentless. With the cunning of a man who has never tasted defeat, the legendary charioteer cuts hard toward the rails, using the inside line to his advantage on the back stretch. They race neck and neck, so close that Marcus can see the determined set of Nikos's jaw, the fierce concentration in his eyes. The third lap becomes a battle of wills. each man pushing his horses to the very edge of their capabilities. Marcus feels the burn in his shoulders, the strain in his forearms as he wrestles with the reins, controlling 4 magnificent beasts that want nothing more than to run wild. But his horses know him, have trained with him through countless sunrises and sunsets. They respond to his whispered encouragement, to the subtle signals only they can feel. Still, Nikos maintains his threat, and as they round the final turn before the home stretch, he surges forward with a burst of speed that seems impossible to match. Marcus's heart hammers against his ribs, and in that moment, he reaches for something deeper than technique, deeper than years of training. He reaches for love, for the life that awaits him beyond these walls, for the future he dares to imagine with Livia. His horses feel it, that pure intention, that crystalline clarity of purpose, and they respond with a surge of power that seems to come from the gods themselves. The final stretch becomes a blur of motion and fury. They are so close that a single thread of silk could not pass between them. The crowd is on its feet, screaming, crying out, their voices so loud that the sound becomes almost a living thing, a presence that propels both chariots forward. Marcus can see the finish line ahead, that sacred marker where destinies are decided, where kingdoms of the heart are won or lost. In the final seconds, everything narrows to a single point of focus. Every muscle, every nerve, every fiber of his being concentrates on that line. He feels the horses beneath him, finding reserves of strength they did not know they possessed. Nikos pushes equally hard, the legendary Charioteer refusing to surrender. But Marcus has something Nikos does not. He has love burning in his chest like a star. They approach the finish line in a chaos of dust and thunder. The crowd holds its collective breath, unable to determine the victor. And then it is over. As Marcus crosses the finish line in a photo finish of extraordinary drama, he cannot yet believe that he has done it, that he has defeated the legendary Nikos, and that freedom is no longer a dream but an approaching reality. The sound that erupts from the crowd is unlike anything Marcus has ever experienced, a tsunami of human voice and passion that lifts him beyond the constraints of his mortal form. It swells from the lower tiers and crashes across the upper levels of the Circus Maximus, a wave of pure elation that seems to shake the very foundations of marble and stone. 100,000 voices crying out his name, over and over, Marcus, 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 until the syllables blend into something primordial and magnificent. He guides his horses around the sandy circuit in the victory lap, his chest heaving with exertion and triumph. The sweat cools on his skin as the sea breeze sweeps down from the Tiber, but the heat of victory burns within him like an eternal flame. His 4 white horses move with the grace of dancers, their coats glistening like pearls beneath the afternoon sun. Marcus leans back slightly, savoring each moment, knowing that this lap is the threshold between his old life and the one he has fought so desperately to claim. Garlands of roses rain down upon him, scattered by devoted admirers from every corner of the stadium. The flowers fall like gentle snow across the sand, catching in his hair, draping across his shoulders. Some land on the chariot's platform, and he catches one without breaking his concentration, holding it aloft so the crowd can see. The roar intensifies. Children call out his name from their parents' shoulders. Senators rise to their feet, nodding in acknowledgement of his skill, his determination, his absolute mastery of the ancient art. Even those who wagered fortunes against him cannot help but respect what they have witnessed this day. Marcus thinks of Nikos, the legendary driver whose record seemed untouchable, whose reputation had cast such a long shadow across the racing world. For 5 years, no one had come close to defeating him. Marcus had watched those races from the stands before he earned his place as a charioteer, studying every turn, every shift of weight, every moment of intuitive genius. And today, in a finish so close that the judges had to consult with one another, Marcus had found something within himself that transcended mere skill. He had found his destiny. The Circus Maximus seems to pulse with a single heartbeat now, the heartbeat of Rome itself, and Marcus feels connected to something far greater than himself. This is what he was born to do. This is what every grueling practice session, every bleeding palm, every moment of doubt and fear has been leading toward. The freedom he craves is not merely physical freedom from servitude, though that matters beyond measure. It is the freedom to be himself, to express the fullness of his spirit through the only language he has ever truly mastered, the language of speed and grace and absolute precision. As he approaches the imperial box once more, he sees the emperor himself leaning forward, eyes alight with the thrill of what he has witnessed. Such a victory brings honor to Rome itself, and the emperor recognizes that Marcus has achieved something truly extraordinary. The gesture of imperial approval adds another layer to his triumph, another confirmation that the dream he has harbored in his heart is no longer impossible. The lap continues, and with each moment that passes, Marcus feels lighter, as though his spirit is ascending to the heavens themselves. The burden he has carried for so long, the weight of longing for a different life, begins to lift. He can taste freedom now, so close he could almost reach out and touch it. Livia is here somewhere in this crowd, and though they cannot acknowledge each other openly, her presence steadies him, reminds him why he has pushed himself beyond every conceivable limit. His hands grip the reins with steady confidence, his eyes bright with unshed tears of joy and relief. The sand beneath the chariot wheels has become sacred ground, hallowed by the moment of his transformation from enslaved charioteer to legendary hero. The crowd's love washes over him like a benediction, like the blessing of the gods themselves. As he raises his arms to acknowledge the crowd's adulation, Marcus catches sight of Livia in the stands, tears streaming down her face, and he knows that his freedom is truly within reach. When Marcus presents himself before Severus with the weighted purse of silver and gold, he is trembling with barely contained emotion. The Lannisters' private chambers smell of leather and the acrid smoke of oil lamps, the walls lined with scrolls detailing the victories and defeats of countless gladiators who came before him. Marcus's heart thunders in his chest as he places the purse upon the polished table between them, watching as Severus's weathered fingers reach toward it with the deliberate slowness of a man savoring an expected moment. The Lannister does not open the purse immediately. Instead, he leans back in his chair, studying Marcus with eyes that have seen 1,000 dreams made and shattered within these walls. The silence stretches like honey poured from a jar, thick and golden, and somehow both comforting and terrifying. Outside, the sounds of the city drift through the high windows, the calls of merchants, the distant rumble of carts on stone, the ordinary music of lives being lived in freedom. Severus finally counts the coins with methodical precision, his capable hands sorting through the accumulated wealth that represents years of bloodshed and glory. Marcus watches the expression on the older man's face shift, almost imperceptibly, as the true magnitude of the sum becomes apparent. This is not merely the price of freedom for an ordinary slave. This is a fortune, earned through the most demanding labor a man can know, every denarius purchased with courage and sacrifice beneath the unforgiving sun. When the counting is complete, Severus gathers the coins back into the purse and holds it before him, as though testing its weight one final time. The Lannister's voice, when he speaks, carries a texture of respect that Marcus has never heard directed toward him before, not in this way. Severus speaks of the races, of the manner in which Marcus has comported himself both in victory and in the rare moments of defeat. He speaks of the way the crowds have come to love him, the way his name has become woven into the very fabric of Roman sporting legend. But freedom, Severus explains, has always had its price, not merely in coin, though that matters. Every slave who walks free from these gates carries something with them, something that cannot be purchased with silver. They carry their stories, their deeds, their place in history. Marcus's story, the Lannister says thoughtfully, is not yet complete. There remains one final chapter that must be written. The proposal comes gently, like an invitation rather than a demand. Severus asks Marcus to consider one final race, not for his own profit, but for the glory that will outlast them both. The Spring Games are approaching, the most prestigious competition of the season, when the emperor himself attends, and when the finest charioteers in all of Rome bring their skills to bear. Let Marcus race one final time under the colors of Severus's stable, and in victory or honorable defeat, his manumission will be granted with all the ceremony and legal standing that such freedom deserves. Marcus feels something shift within him as he listens. The path before him becomes suddenly clear, not as a burden, but as a gift. This final race would not be a continuation of slavery, but rather a capstone, a moment when his choices and his will would be entirely his own. He would race not because he must, but because he chooses to. And in that choosing, he would find a completion that mere freedom papers could never provide. The young charioteer nods slowly, and Severus rises from his chair, extending his weathered hand across the table. They clasp wrists in the ancient gesture of agreement, and Marcus feels the strength in the Lannister's grip, a strength tempered by decades of understanding what it means to shape men's destinies. In this moment, something like friendship passes between them, an acknowledgement of the journey they have shared, the struggles they have both endured. Severus, proving to be a man of honor after all, agrees to manumit Marcus in exchange for a final race in the Spring Games, a race that will cement both their legacies in the annals of Roman sporting history. Beneath a marble archway draped in moonlight, Marcus and Livia meet for what they both fear might be the last time before everything changes. The secret garden unfolds around them like a sanctuary stolen from the watchful eyes of Rome, its hidden pathways lined with cypress trees and flowering oleander that seem to glow with an ethereal luminescence beneath the silver light. Water from a small fountain creates a gentle symphony that masks the sound of their careful footsteps, the soft whisper of Livia's silk stola against the marble stone. Marcus stands waiting when she arrives, his tall frame silhouetted against the archway, and when he sees her, something shifts in his expression, a tenderness breaking through the hardened shell that the arena has built around his heart. He reaches for her without hesitation, his calloused hands finding the smoothness of her face, and they stand there in silence for a moment that feels like an eternity, drinking in the reality of each other's presence. "I was afraid you would not come," he whispers, his voice rough with emotion. "I would find you across all of Rome, through any barrier." Livia replies, her fingers threading through his dark hair. "Severus has agreed to grant you freedom after the Spring Games. Marcus, do you understand what this means? Freedom." The word hangs between them, precious and fragile as spun glass. Marcus draws her closer, and they move together toward the edge of the fountain where moonlight pools on smooth stone. They sit there, and he takes her hand, placing it over his heart where it beats strong and steady beneath his tunic. "Freedom means nothing to me if you are not in it," he says quietly. "I have raced for my master, for glory, for survival. But these past months, I have raced for you, Livia. Every turn around that track, every victory, every moment of pain, I carried your memory like a torch burning in the darkness." Livia's eyes shine with unshed tears as she studies his face, committing every detail to memory. She reaches up and traces the line of his jaw, the scar near his temple from a fall years ago, the strong set of his chin that has become so familiar to her despite the impossibility of their bond. "I have lived as a ghost in my father's house," she confesses, her voice trembling, moving through marble halls, wearing the mask of the dutiful patrician daughter, while my heart belonged to a man I could never acknowledge in daylight. "But I cannot live that way any longer," "Marcus, I will not. Then we will leave Rome," he says with sudden fierce certainty. "When the spring games are over, and Severus grants me manumission, we will go beyond the empire's reach. We will find a place where a charioteer and a patrician's daughter can simply be a man and a woman." "They will hunt us," Livia whispers, though her expression shows no fear, only resolution. "Let them hunt us," Marcus responds. "We will run into the world and build a life that is ours alone. I will ask nothing more of existence than you beside me." He pulls her against his chest, and she wraps her arms around him as if she could hold him there forever, as if by the sheer force of her will she could stop time and keep this moment suspended in amber. They do not kiss, though desire burns between them like a living thing. Instead, they simply hold each other in the moonlit garden, drawing strength from the connection that has become as vital to them as breath itself. When they finally separate, it is with the understanding that their separation is temporary, that the coming races, the potential dangers, and all the obstacles the Roman world might place before them are merely chapters in a story that has already been written in the stars. As they part, Marcus and Livia understand that no matter what happens in the races ahead, they will find a way to be together, for their love has proven stronger than the chains that bind society, stronger than fear, stronger than death itself. As the spring sun warms Rome and blossoms burst forth on the trees lining the streets, the final races of Marcus's servitude approach like a destiny he has been racing toward his entire life. The air carries the scent of wild flowers and anticipation, and the entire city seems to hold its breath, waiting for the moment when a charioteer of unmatched skill will finally claim the prize that has eluded him for so long. The Circus Maximus gleams in the golden light, its marble tiers already filling with spectators who sense that something momentous is about to unfold. Marcus trains with fierce intensity in the days before the spring games begin. His horses respond to his touch as though they are extensions of his own will, moving as one fluid entity around the sandy track. Every muscle in his body remembers the feel of the reins, the perfect balance required to navigate the turns at breathtaking speed, the moment of absolute commitment when he must trust completely in his skill and in the hearts of his team. He can feel Livia watching from the shadows of the training grounds, and her presence fills him with a strength he has never known before. The morning of the first race arrives with crystalline clarity. The sun strikes the sand of the circus floor like liquid gold, and the roar of the crowd is a living thing, washing over him in waves of sound. Marcus guides his team through the entrance, and the spectators erupt. He can see the colors of his stable, the green and blue that have become symbols of his reputation, carried high on countless hands throughout the tiers. His heart beats with the rhythm of his horses' hooves as they thunder forward. The first race unfolds like a dance he has choreographed 1,000 times in his dreams. His competitors are skilled, their teams powerful and swift, but Marcus and his quadriga move with a precision that cannot be matched. He threads through openings that seem impossibly narrow, angles his wheels with millimeter accuracy, and drives his horses into curves that make the crowd gasp. When he crosses the finish line, the roar that erupts from the crowd shakes the very foundations of the circus. Victory. Between races, Marcus walks through the corridors beneath the stands, his body alive with the electricity of triumph. Water is poured over him, and attendants check his horses for any sign of injury or fatigue. He moves with calm certainty, knowing that his skill has been proven true. The second race will be his as well, and it is. The competitors know they face a charioteer operating at the very peak of human ability. Marcus feels invincible, as though his weeks of longing for Livia have somehow transformed him into something greater than himself. He rounds the final turns with such audacity that observers hold their breath, certain for a moment that he will crash, but instead he achieves a speed that seems to defy the very laws of nature. The crowd rises to its feet in unison, and once again, he tears across the finish line victorious. The third race is the one that matters most. This is the race that will grant him complete freedom, the race that will transform him from property into a man. As he takes his position, Marcus thinks of Livia waiting somewhere in the stands, her dark eyes watching his every movement. He channels all of his longing, all of his determination, all of his fierce will into this single moment. The gates open, and he launches forward as though propelled by the gods themselves. His horses understand what is at stake. They run as though their own liberation depends upon this victory, and perhaps in some mystical way, it does. Marcus guides them with absolute mastery, feeling the sand beneath the wheels, reading the subtle shifts in the wind, responding to the slightest changes in his horse's stride. As he approaches the final stretch, he knows with absolute certainty that victory is his. He crosses the finish line to an explosion of sound so immense that it drowns out all thought. With each victory, Marcus feels the chains that have bound him since his youth growing lighter, and he begins to believe, truly and completely, that freedom is no longer a dream but an imminent reality. In the presence of the emperor, and with the Circus Maximus packed with thousands of spectators, Marcus kneels before Severus as a slave for the final time. The afternoon sun streams through the great arched openings of the ancient amphitheater, casting long shadows across the sand where he has raced countless times before. His heart moves with a rhythm far steadier than it ever did when urging his horses forward at breakneck speed. Around him, the marble tiers rise like white mountains, filled with the murmur of anticipation that ripples through the crowd like wind across still water. Severus stands before him, dignified and serene in his purple-bordered toga. The Lannister's face carries the weight of many years, yet his eyes shine with something Marcus has come to recognize as genuine regard. Behind the wealthy patron stands his family, his children, his wife, and there, her face luminous with emotion she can barely contain, stands Livia. She watches from the privileged seats, her hand pressed to her heart, tears glistening like pearls beneath her eyes. The ceremony unfolds with ancient ritual and deliberate grace. A magistrate steps forward, his voice carrying across the silent arena with the formal weight of Rome's law. He reads the document of manumission aloud, each word a note in a symphony that Marcus never dared believe he would hear. The scroll unfolds like a map to a new world, detailing the grounds for Marcus's freedom, the service rendered, the valor displayed, the trust earned over years of loyalty and excellence. Severus places his hand upon Marcus's head, a gesture both paternal and transformative. The words of formal release echo through the circus, ancient Latin phrases that strip away the legal bonds of servitude with the same finality as a knife cutting through rope. Around them, the crowd begins to stir, sensing the significance of what unfolds. The anticipation builds like the moment before a chariot race begins, the eternal pause before motion and destiny converge. The magistrate pours water over Marcus's head, symbolic cleansing that washes away the identity of slave and prepares him for rebirth as a citizen. The cool liquid runs down his face, and Marcus feels something shift deep within his being. His breathing slows. The noise of the crowds seems to fade into distance, though they continue to cheer. In this moment between former and future, he exists in a space of perfect calm, suspended between the life he has known and the life he is about to claim. The Phrygian cap is placed upon his head, that symbol of the freedman that he will wear with pride for the rest of his days. The crowd's murmur transforms into something louder, something like a wave building before it crashes upon the shore. Senators rise to their feet. The emperor himself nods in approval, a gesture so small yet so monumental in its significance. In that single acknowledgement, Marcus feels the validation of Rome itself, of the city whose streets have held him captive and now release him. Severus embraces him then, drawing Marcus up from his kneeling position and holding him close. It is an embrace filled with genuine affection, free from the ownership and command that has always accompanied their relationship before. When they part, there is moisture in the older man's eyes as well. Behind them, the roar of the crowd has become deafening, a sound like thunder rolling across the heavens. People stand and shout his name. Some weep openly. The spectacle of transformation moves them all. Marcus catches Livia's gaze across the amphitheater, and in that moment, all the years of longing, of stolen glances, of carefully guarded conversations find their resolution. Her smile shines brighter than the sun itself. She is a senator's daughter, and he has been a slave. Yet now the world has shifted on its axis. Now possibility stretches before them, like an unwritten scroll waiting for their story to be written. The moment expands beyond time, suspended in amber, perfect and complete. As Marcus rises to his feet as a free man, his new citizen's rights proclaimed before Rome itself, he feels the weight of years lift from his shoulders, and he can finally see the future that awaits him. Marcus, still wearing the dust of the arena, presents himself at the villa of Livia's father and makes the boldest declaration of his life. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the marble courtyard as he approaches, his heart thundering against his ribs like the hooves of chariot horses. He has washed away the blood and grime of battle, changed into a simple but respectable tunic, and placed the documents of his manumission carefully within his garment. They feel heavier than any armor he has ever worn, yet lighter than the chains that once bound him. The servants recognize him immediately, though they look confused at his arrival without summons or invitation. One young slave boy, barely older than 16, stands uncertainly in the entryway. Marcus requests an audience with Livia's father, Gaius Flavius, and watches as the boy's eyes widen in surprise. Word travels quickly through even the grandest households, and surely by now, the entire city knows that the famous charioteer Marcus has been granted his freedom. The boy bows respectfully and hurries away to fetch his master. The waiting is eternal and instantaneous, both at once. Marcus paces slowly through the atrium, observing the wealth around him with new eyes. Before, when he came to see Livia, he was merely a visitor, a man of lower station permitted entrance only by the grace of his position as a celebrated performer. Now he is something different. Now he is a citizen. The distinction seems to shimmer in the air around him, like heat rising from sun-baked stone. Gaius Flavius enters with the measured steps of a man, accustomed to authority and respect. He is tall, with silver threading through his dark hair, and his expression is one of curious assessment. He has seen Marcus perhaps a dozen times in the past months, always at formal gatherings where such a meeting would be considered unusual, but not impossible. The charioteer was, after all, a man of considerable fame and wealth, despite his former status. Marcus drops to one knee in the traditional gesture of respect, but he does so not as a slave would, not with the posture of a man lesser than his betters. He kneels as a supplicant, as a man seeking something precious and knowing its worth. Gaius raises an eyebrow, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He gestures for Marcus to rise, and when their eyes meet, there is a glimmer of something like approval in the older man's gaze. Marcus speaks then, his voice steady and clear despite the storm within his chest. He speaks of his manumission, officially granted mere hours ago before witnesses and magistrates. He speaks of his citizenship, his rights, and his prospects. But more than these practical matters, he speaks of Livia. He tells her father that he has loved her from the moment she turned her face toward him in the crowd, that every circuit around the arena track has been made with the thought of a future where they might build a life together. He tells Gaius Flavius that he is not the man he was, and he will never forget the man he has been, but that he is finally, truly, the man he wishes to become. A man worthy of a woman like his daughter. A man who can offer her not just affection, but protection, security, and a name that matters in Rome. Gaius listens without interruption, his expression thoughtful and measured. When Marcus finishes, there is a long silence filled only with the sound of a fountain trickling in a nearby garden and the distant hum of the city beyond these walls. Then the older man speaks. He acknowledges Marcus's courage, his achievement, and his dedication. He speaks of his daughter's happiness and how he has watched her change since meeting the Charioteer. He speaks of admiration and respect, earned through deeds rather than birthright. When Livia's father nods his assent, Marcus feels as though the gods themselves are smiling upon him, and he knows that the journey from slavery to freedom to love has been worth every sacrifice and every bruise. News of the engagement spreads through Rome like wildfire, and the entire city seems to prepare for a celebration worthy of the couple whose love story has captivated everyone from the lowest slave to the emperor himself. In the streets of the Forum, merchants arrange their finest silks and jewels in displays more elaborate than those prepared for imperial visitors. The flower sellers near the Temple of Venus begin gathering roses and lilies, their carts overflowing with blooms in shades of crimson and cream. Even the humblest streets echo with anticipation, as news travels from tongue to tongue, from marketplace to tavern, spreading joy through every corner of the great city. Livia's mother moves through their home like a woman possessed by divine purpose, checking lists of guests, consulting with the kitchen staff about menus that will honor both families. The house fills with the scent of exotic spices being prepared in advance, and bolts of fabric arrive daily, displayed across the great room as Livia considers each option with careful deliberation. Her young handmaids flutter around her, their excitement nearly overwhelming as they help her imagine the possibilities. She runs her fingers across silks dyed in Tyrian purple, considers gossamer fabrics that shimmer like water, touches linens so fine they feel like clouds against her skin. Marcus walks the city in a daze of happiness, greeting old friends and encountering strangers who clasp his shoulders with genuine warmth. The charioteer who once had nothing now has everything, and Rome celebrates his journey as though it were their own personal triumph. His brothers at the stables create elaborate jokes about wedding duties and married life, their laughter booming through the Circus Maximus until even the horses seem to sense the joy surrounding them. The other drivers challenge him to races with playful intentions, celebrating rather than envying his happiness. The senator orchestrates the guest list with the precision of a military campaign, determining the order of seating and the proper protocols for receiving such important visitors. Imperial messengers arrive bearing official acknowledgement from the court itself, and word spreads that the emperor sends his blessings upon the union. This news elevates the occasion to something approaching state ceremony, and the city's excitement reaches fever pitch. Banners begin appearing throughout Rome, symbols of the racing factions intertwined with symbols of commerce, representing the joining of these two worlds. In the hidden garden where so much of their love story unfolded, Livia and Marcus steal moments together amidst all the chaos of preparation. They walk hand in hand beneath the ancient olive trees, speaking softly about their future. Marcus describes the home he wishes to build for them, a modest but beautiful place where they can escape the pressures of the city and simply be together. Livia shares her dreams of creating a sanctuary filled with music and laughter, perhaps children playing in a courtyard garden. They sit on the marble bench where they first confessed their feelings, and the weight of their good fortune sometimes threatens to overwhelm them both. The wedding date approaches like the arrival of an important festival, and the city transforms accordingly. The streets are cleaned to gleaming perfection, and musicians begin rehearsing the compositions they will perform during the ceremony. The bakeries prepare special cakes filled with honey and almonds, while vintners select their finest wines from their deepest cellars. Every guild in Rome seems to contribute something to the celebration, whether through decorations, provisions, or offerings to the gods for the couple's happiness. Livia's father and Marcus meet several times to discuss the practical matters that bind two families together. They do so with genuine affection now, no longer opponents but partners in creating joy. The merchant offers Marcus advice about securing their future, and the charioteer listens humbly, grateful for guidance from a man he has come to admire and respect. As Livia selects fabrics for her wedding dress and Marcus contemplates the home they will build together, both can hardly believe that the impossible dream they dared to pursue has become an approaching reality. As night falls on the eve of their wedding, Marcus stands alone in his new home, a modest but respectable dwelling purchased with his racing winnings, and allows himself to fully acknowledge the magnitude of the transformation his life has undergone. The oil lamps cast a warm glow across the modest atrium, and he moves slowly through the rooms as if seeing them for the first time, though he has walked these corridors countless times since acquiring the property. Each space holds possibility now, holds promise. He runs his hand along the cool stone walls and remembers the barracks where he once slept on straw, where the roar of the crowds was muffled and distant, where freedom seemed like a distant myth whispered between enslaved men who dared to dream. Tomorrow, Livia will enter these walls as his wife. The thought sends a tremor through his chest, a sensation caught between disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. He sits in the courtyard beneath the stars, listening to the distant sounds of Rome settling into sleep. The city that once seemed so vast and impenetrable now feels like a place where anything might be possible. He thinks of her face, the way her eyes looked at him across the forum when they first truly saw each other, beyond the barriers of class and circumstance. He remembers every moment they had to steal, every whispered conversation in shadowed corners, every touch that had to be hidden away from a world that would have condemned them both. The scars on his back have faded somewhat with time, but they are still visible in certain light. Marcus traces them now with his fingertips, remembering the man he was before Livia recognized something worthy beneath the bruises and degradation. She saw strength where the world saw only property. She saw possibility where others saw limitation. She loved him not despite his past, but somehow with full knowledge of it, accepting every part of his journey as part of what made him the man she chose. In another part of the city, in the home of her father, Livia lies awake in her chamber, her mind too full of anticipation and emotion to permit sleep. Tomorrow the sun will rise on a new life. She thinks of her father's face when she finally told him the truth, when she could no longer hide her love and her intentions. She had expected anger, disappointment, rejection. Instead, she found something she had not anticipated: understanding. Her father had once loved against expectation too, and though his path had been different, he recognized in his daughter's determination something of his own younger self. The wedding dress hangs in the adjoining room, the white fabric seeming to glow in the moonlight that streams through the window. Livia had chosen the design herself, incorporating elements that honored both her station and her heart. The fabric will move like water when she walks, will feel light as clouds against her skin. But what matters most is what waits at the end of the aisle. The man whose hands have learned to be gentle, despite the violence they were trained to inflict, whose voice has learned to speak softly of love, despite a lifetime of hearing only commands and curses. She thinks of the morning ahead, of the ritual of preparation, the oils and perfumes, the careful arrangement of her hair with the white flowers Marcus had somehow managed to procure. She wonders if he is sleeping or if he, too, lies awake in the darkness, counting the hours. She imagines him in the home they will share, touching the walls, imagining her presence there, just as she lies here imagining him. The wooden amulet he gave her so long ago rests against her skin, beneath her sleeping tunic. She has worn it every day since he placed it in her palm with trembling fingers, a token made by his own hands, simple and perfect. Her fingers find it now, smooth from constant contact, warm from her own body. She holds it close and allows herself to fully feel the scope of what tomorrow means. There's no more hiding, no more separation, there's no more waiting. Only a future written not by fate or circumstance, but by their own hands, their own hearts, their own absolute refusal to accept the world as it was meant to be. In her chamber, Livia holds the wooden amulet Marcus gave her and whispers promises to the night sky, knowing that when dawn arrives, her life will forever intertwine with that of the man who rose from slavery to claim his freedom and her heart. When Livia enters the temple in her white wedding dress, adorned with flowers and surrounded by attendants, Marcus sees her and feels his heart expand to fill not just his own chest, but the entire marble chamber. The morning light streams through the high windows of the Temple of Venus, casting everything in a soft, golden glow. The white flowers woven through Livia's hair catch the light like stars, and the fine linen of her stola falls in graceful folds from her shoulders, the hem embroidered with images of doves and olive branches. 1,000 moments from their journey together flash through Marcus's mind in this single, suspended second. Every whispered conversation in hidden gardens, every stolen glance across crowded streets, every moment they thought their love might be impossible now seems to have been leading inexorably toward this one perfect day. The gathered witnesses, hundreds of them, stand in solemn silence. There are senators and their wives, merchants and their families, free citizens and freedmen alike. Word has spread through Rome of this remarkable union, and people have come from across the city to witness the charioteer who won his freedom and the patrician woman who chose love over duty. The air itself seems to shimmer with anticipation and something deeper, something almost sacred. Livia's eyes find Marcus's across the temple floor, and in that moment, the rest of the world falls away. Her attendants guide her toward the altar, but her gaze never wavers. There is courage in her eyes, and certainty, and a love so profound that it seems impossible that hearts can contain such feeling. Marcus takes her hand as she reaches him, and her fingers are cool and trembling slightly, but her grip is firm. This is not the gesture of someone uncertain. This is the hand of a woman who has made a choice and stands by it completely. The priest of Venus begins the sacred words, his voice resonant and ancient in its rhythms. He speaks of love as a force that transcends the boundaries mortals construct, as a divine gift that comes only to those pure enough to recognize it. Livia and Marcus exchange portions of water and wine from a sacred vessel, sealing their commitment not just to each other, but to truth and honor. Around them, women weep quietly, moved by the beauty of the ceremony and by what it represents. Men nod solemnly, understanding that they are witnessing something that will be remembered. When it comes time for the vows, Marcus speaks first, his voice steady and clear. He tells Livia that she is his horizon, the light that guided him from darkness, the reason freedom itself has meaning. He speaks of how love has made him whole, how she has shown him that he was worthy of more than just survival, that he was worthy of joy and connection and partnership. There is not a dry eye in the temple as he finishes. Then Livia speaks, her voice ringing out with surprising strength. She tells Marcus that she never understood what her privileged life meant until she met someone willing to sacrifice everything for freedom. She tells him that he has freed her too, from empty expectation and hollow ritual, from a life of surface beauty concealing inner emptiness. She pledges to him her heart, her loyalty, her hand, her spirit, forever until death itself cannot separate them. The priest pronounces them united under divine blessing and Roman law. As they turn to face the assembled witnesses together, a spontaneous cheer rises from the crowd, not loud or disruptive, but genuine and heartfelt. Rose petals are scattered across their path as they walk down the temple aisle, and sunlight seems to follow them, creating a golden pathway. Outside, the streets of Rome are lined with people who have come to watch. There is kindness in their faces, recognition of something profound. They have seen love triumph, not over mere difficulty, but over the very structure of their society. As they exchange vows before the gods and Rome itself, both Marcus and Livia understand that their love, forged in danger and nurtured in shadows, has become a beacon of hope for everyone who has ever dared to dream beyond the constraints of their circumstances. The years that follow Marcus's marriage to Livia are filled with contentment and purpose, as he transitions from competing in the Circus Maximus to mentoring the young racers who dream of glory. The dust of the arena still clings to his memories. The thunder of hooves and roaring crowds a phantom sensation that visits him in quiet moments. Yet now these recollections bring warmth rather than the sharp sting of longing. His weathered hands, once blistered from gripping reins with desperate strength, now guide younger hands through the same motions with patience and gentleness. The school he establishes occupies a sprawling compound on the outskirts of Rome, where training grounds stretch beneath open sky and practice tracks curve through carefully maintained grounds. It is here that Marcus builds his legacy, not through victories and accolades, though those memories remain precious, but through the transformation of raw talent into refined skill. He walks among his students each morning as the sun rises over the 7 hills, observing their progress with the keen eye of someone who has lived every struggle they face. Livia stands beside him in this endeavor, her presence a constant source of strength and wisdom. She has become known throughout Rome, not merely as the wife of a former champion, but as a woman of remarkable insight and compassion. Together, they have created something far more enduring than any trophy won in the arena. The school becomes a sanctuary where young men from modest backgrounds discover they are capable of greatness, where discipline and dedication transform possibility into achievement. The curriculum Marcus develops is revolutionary in its comprehensiveness. He teaches not merely the mechanical arts of chariot racing, but the philosophy behind excellence. His students learn the importance of understanding their horses as partners rather than tools, of reading the track as one reads an opponent's intentions, of cultivating the mental fortitude that separates champions from those who merely compete. Evening gatherings find him surrounded by attentive faces, as he shares the lessons earned through countless races, near-fatal crashes, and the bittersweet taste of both triumph and defeat. Word of his school spreads throughout the empire. Young men arrive from distant provinces, drawn by the reputation of a man who rose from slavery to freedom, who won the hearts of both crowds and nobility through sheer determination and honor. Marcus receives them all with the same respect he would offer to senators or emperors, recognizing in their eyes the same hunger for something greater that once burned within himself. The household he shares with Livia becomes a gathering place where Rome's social fabric intersects with unexpected harmony. Former rivals become colleagues. Senators engage in genuine conversation with young charioteers, and the rigid hierarchies that once seemed immutable begin to soften at the edges. Through their home flows a current of transformation, where the impossible has already been proven possible through the very existence of Marcus and Livia's union. Years accumulate like layers of fine patina on ancient bronze. Marcus's hair silvered by time, his face lined by sun and experience, yet his eyes retain the brightness of a man who has found purpose beyond himself. He watches his students achieve their own victories in the arena, and while pride swells in his chest, it is a different pride than he experienced as a racer. This pride is rooted in the knowledge that he has planted seeds that will continue growing long after he himself has returned to dust. Livia, too, has found her calling in this shared mission. She works with the wives and families of students, offering counsel and support, creating networks of connection that strengthen the entire community. Her love for Marcus has only deepened, evolving from the passionate urgency of forbidden desire into something more sustaining. A partnership built on shared values and complementary dreams. In his school, surrounded by eager students and supported by his beloved wife, Marcus reflects that his journey from the auction block to freedom, from slavery to citizenship, has given him the greatest gift: the knowledge that dreams, no matter how impossible they seem, can be realized through courage, perseverance, and love. When Marcus enters the Circus Maximus not as a competitor, but as a spectator, standing freely among the crowds without chains or obligation, he is struck by the poignancy of his return. The great arena stretches before him, vast and eternal, its sand gleaming golden beneath the afternoon sun. The roar of thousands surrounds him, that ancient chorus of voices he once heard from his chariot's vantage point. But now it reaches him differently. Now it touches him with a strange melancholy, a recognition of time's passage and all that has changed within these marble walls. 20 years have passed since he last raced here, 20 years since his final victory, the one that bought his freedom and sealed his fate with Livia. He settles into a seat among the wealthy patricians, a privilege that would have seemed impossible in those days of sweat and dust and desperate hope. No one recognizes the aging man in fine linen, his hair touched with silver, his face weathered but calm. That legendary charioteer exists now only in stories, in the memories of older spectators who occasionally turn their heads and wonder. The young racers thunder onto the track, their horses' muscles rippling like dark water beneath their coats. They are fearless, these new champions, their faces alight with the same hunger Marcus remembers burning in his own chest. They want the glory, the coin, the adoration of crowds. They want to transcend their circumstances, to prove themselves worthy of something greater than the stations into which they were born. Marcus watches them thunder around the first turn, their chariots tilting at angles that defy death, and something aches in his heart. He thinks of Livia, waiting for him at home in their modest villa near the Tiber. She tends her garden there, the roses she planted years ago now tall and fragrant. She teaches their daughter to read poetry, to appreciate beauty beyond the amphitheater and the marketplace. His wife no longer glances at the crowd when they walk through the forum together. She has learned that freedom is not spectacular. It is quiet, it is daily, it is the small choice to wake beside someone you love. The crowd erupts as a green team chariot nearly collides with a blue team rival. Marcus does not jump to his feet with the others. He has learned that watching is enough, witnessing the hunger of youth, acknowledging the fire that once consumed him, understanding now what it meant and what it cost. He remembers his final race with crystalline clarity. The sun had been this same color. These same people had screamed his name in this same way. He had known, even as he drove, that winning would change everything, that the purse waiting for him would purchase his manumission papers. Yes, but it would cost him years of his life, countless injuries that ache in his bones now, and the simplicity of not knowing what choice meant. Every victory had a price that only shows itself in retrospect. The blue team surges ahead, and the crowd's roar shakes the very stones. Marcus observes the raw joy on the young driver's face as he approaches victory. He remembers that joy, that pure elation of crossing the finish line knowing the crowd belongs to you, that your body has proven stronger than circumstance. But he also remembers the hollowness that followed, the way that joy was never quite enough, always chased by the need for another victory, another race, another chance to prove his worth. Now his worth is not measured in victories or coin. It is measured in the leisure to sit and watch instead of compete. It is measured in his daughter's laughter, in Livia's hand finding his in the marketplace without fear or secrecy. It is measured in the young men who come to his school to learn the craft of chariot racing, not because they are enslaved, but because they choose to learn from someone who can teach them not just technique, but wisdom. The blue team crosses the finish line. The crowd erupts. Somewhere in that young driver's triumph, Marcus glimpses his own younger self, and he mourns him gently, tenderly, with the compassion of distance and time. Watching the young racers risk their lives for prizes and glory, Marcus understands that his true victory was not the races he won or the money he accumulated, but the freedom to choose his own path and the love that made that freedom worth claiming. Long after Marcus and Livia have passed into the realm of memory and legend, their story is whispered in the markets of Rome, sung by street performers, and told to children as a reminder of what love can accomplish. In the quiet corners of the Circus Maximus, where marble gleams beneath the Mediterranean sun, elderly attendants point to the very track where a slave once drove his chariot with such fierce determination that crowds rose to their feet in wonder. They speak of Marcus with reverence, not because he won races or accumulated wealth, but because he dared to claim something greater than victory. He claimed his own life. The story has been embellished over generations, as all great tales are. Some say that on the night they fled Rome together, the very gods parted the clouds to light their path. Others claim that Livia's father, moved by the depth of their devotion, eventually blessed their union and welcomed Marcus as a son rather than a slave. The truth, like all truth, is more subtle and more profound than legend, yet no less beautiful for its simplicity. In the Forum, where merchants hawk their wares and philosophers debate the nature of freedom, scholars have begun to recognize that Marcus and Livia's love was revolutionary in ways that had nothing to do with politics or power. They loved across the rigid boundaries of a world that said such things were impossible. A woman of respectable birth did not marry a man born in chains. A slave did not claim the heart of his social superior. Yet they did, and in doing so, they became immortal. The children of Rome grow up knowing their names. Mothers whisper the story to restless infants, and somehow, the tale of two souls finding each other against impossible odds seems to soothe the deepest anxieties, as if to say that love itself is the greatest force in the universe, more powerful than law, more enduring than empire. In the hidden gardens that once witnessed their stolen moments together, flowers bloom each spring with almost supernatural vigor. The jasmine vines spread further than any gardener planted them, and the roses refuse to die even in the harshest winters. Pilgrims visit these gardens, seeking what Marcus and Livia found, believing that the place where such love once flourished must hold magic within its soil. Generations of women have taken courage from Livia's example. She was not a warrior or a priestess, not a senator or a ruler, yet she wielded a power that changed the course of her own destiny. She looked at the life prescribed for her and chose something different. She saw a man whom society deemed unworthy and recognized his true worth. She paid a price for her choice, certainly, but she paid it willingly and without regret. And Marcus, the boy who arrived in Rome as a nameless chattel, becomes the symbol of something that every person secretly wishes to believe in. That circumstance does not determine destiny, that our beginnings do not define our endings, and that through courage and love, we can forge new paths through the world, however many chains may initially bind us. The Circus Maximus still roars with the thunder of hooves and the screaming of crowds. New champions arise and fall away. But in the hearts of those who know the story, there is a different kind of race being remembered. One where the true victory was simply choosing to live freely with the person you love most in the world. Philosophers now speak of Marcus and Livia when discussing the nature of freedom. Was it their escape that liberated them, or was it something deeper? Something that began the moment they chose each other. This question echoes through the centuries, unanswered and eternal. The empire itself will someday crumble and fade, its marble monuments reduced to dust, its mighty emperors forgotten. But the love of Marcus and Livia, endures in a way that stone and gold cannot. It lives in the hearts of all who have ever dared to love against the odds, in the quiet strength of those who know that true freedom cannot be granted by any authority, only claimed from within. And so the tale of Marcus, the slave who became a champion, and Livia, the merchant's daughter who dared to love beyond her station, lives on eternally, a testament to the triumph of the human spirit, the power of love to overcome any obstacle, and the truth that freedom, in its truest form, is found not in the absence of chains, but in the presence of someone worth breaking free for.